Can I just say something about Andrea?
Well, hey guys, hello from Los Angeles. It's definitely not my usual scene here, but nobody's here to look at me anyway, right? We're here to talk about Ioan and Alice. Finally, this thing is going to trial. This has been 5 years in the making. I know some of you are new to this case, and so I wanted to just real quickly try to get you somewhat up to speed with what the situation is and what's been going on. But it's going to be a little bit of a challenge. I tried to film a little short, like several times, and there's no way to summarize this case in 3 minutes or less. So what I do have, though, that I can share is a little bit of a timeline. And that is this right here. I have just gone and put this together from basically everything that is here in the legal docs. And so this is really a divorce from hell. It all began back in August of 2007 when Ioan married Alice. So if you don't know who these people are, Ioan he's a Welsh actor. He's probably best known for, he had roles in Titanic, Horatio Hornblower, Fantastic Four, several other films and TV appearances. Alice is a British-American actress. She is probably best known for 102 Dalmatians. Maybe it's the Vampire Diaries. I don't know. But anyway, so they met, got married in 2007, had kids in 2009 and 2013. And by outward appearances had this very, very happy, successful, idyllic kind of marriage, but of course all was not as it seemed behind the scenes, because as it turns out, it seems that old Alice has a bit of a substance abuse problem, a bit of a social media addiction, and quite an abusive personality. So this came to a head in about 2020. He was at home during COVID. The kids were, having to school from home. He was helping to set that up. But had to go back to work. There's these blowout fights. Things are just kind of falling apart in the middle of all of this. So there's several like kind of big blow up fights that have been documented. There was this one that was in June of 2020. There's a transcript of this that's been out for some time. I refer to it as the "I Can Be Daddy's Therapist" video, because that's what one of the daughters says. It's quite sad. Alice has this tendency to put the children in the middle of the conflict, and so this particular video transcript is a prime example of that. So basically, this is just an argument between Ioan and Alice where, they're both there, and Alice is talking about how she's going to give the kids a new daddy, and, just he's terrible, exposing the children to adult things and relationship problems that really they should not be in the middle of. But that is just a thing that Alice has an ongoing tendency to do, is put the kids in the middle of the dispute. So then in middle of July of 2020, Ioan goes back to Australia. He's filming this TV series, Harrow. And so right before he leaves, there's this big blowout fight. And he describes this in his petition to renew the domestic violence restraining order, which we're going to get to because he does have one against her. And so in his petition to renew, he describes this incident where he is like leaving he's like on the runway on the plane, and he gets a FaceTime message from his daughter, who's telling him that mom is like left the door open for her drug dealer. And he's like just trying to tell them to stay calm and be safe. And he gets a video message where they've kind of like just sequestered themselves. Basically, they're like assuring him that you know, they're on the lookout for mommy, kind of, but they're going to keep themselves safe. So as soon as he leaves, there's like this thing with you know, the kids being unattended and being in a kind of unsafe situation. So then the filming finishes, and in August, that for Ioan, he describes it, this was the end of the road for us. This was like, that's when he knew there was no salvaging this marriage. This thing is a train wreck. So he got back in August, tells her at that point he wants to separate, and starting from now on, pretty much into infinity, Alice is threatening to ruin him. She's going to destroy his life. She's going to ruin his career. She's going to take his kids away from him. She's going to make false accusations against him. She's going to Amber Heard him. She advises him to just KHS, right? Can't say it on YouTube. Says in front of the girls, please God, just make him die. Now, during this time frame, Alice is already kind of starting to, it seems, come up mentally with her narrative of what's going on, because Alice had a very large social media presence for quite a long time on both Twitter and Instagram. She had, I want to say, maybe 30,000 followers on Twitter. She had, at the time, probably about 75, 80 on Instagram. And she liked to talk about a lot of stuff, and she liked to talk about her husband, and she liked to talk about her family, and she liked to post pictures and things like that. But a lot of what she would talk about and post about was, you know, kind of critical, not real supportive, kind of intrusive a lot of the times. So Alice has a very heavy emphasis on the public appearance. And so you can kind of see in hindsight now how Alice is starting to like fabricate the narrative, because this whole time she's been, you know, bitching about her husband on the internet. But that doesn't, you know, I bitched about my husband and so he left me. That's like not a good image. So she has to turn it into something else. So Alice, during this time period, starts, like, later on, she's denying that like she knows anything about him wanting to separate. That you know, she starts claiming she was blindsided, and you know, it just came out of the blue. Nobody really saw it coming. She was shocked, and that's part of explaining her bad behavior that will follow very shortly. So she later on is claiming that during this whole time, she didn't know anything about pending divorce. This was just all out of the blue, and she didn't even learn about it until he gave some interview where he was saying he was unhappy in the marriage. So January 1st, 2021 was the date of they formally separated. According to their paperwork, on January 25th is when Ioan moved out of the family home. But he continued to pay all of the expenses. He paid the mortgage, he paid the bills, he paid the repairs, he paid the utilities, he paid the phones, he paid everything. And at this point in time, he would go back home daily to see the kids. But very, very quickly, this became a problem for Alice. And so she began to cause problems with him visiting. And she began to include the kids in these problems, so that the kids would basically just become very stressed about spending time with Ioan. And this kind of began her campaign of parental alienation, to kind of force them to reject their father in order to placate her and her emotions. So beginning about middle of February, Alice starts getting angry about the visits. There's another like recorded incident that there's a transcript that's been filed where she talks about one of the comments she makes to the children is, the babies can stand up for me or they can fuck off. Like, great mothering there. A week later, Ioan returns the girls home. She threatens to Amber Heard him. So he, at this point, decides it's not safe for me to come back to the house. So they have to come to my house, his apartment he was staying in to visit at that point. So it didn't happen as much. The older daughter was, he describes her as being far more concerned about Alice's feelings and about her stress. And so she was like more reluctant to engage with Ioan from very early on. But the younger daughter would, just kind of came across as more of a daddy's girl. She would still visit very frequently every day after school. They would do homework together and things like that. Oops, hit the wrong thing. So then end of the month, another big drama queen incident at when Elsie is dropped off. I think he described this one as like she was just hysterical in tears, like crying like she hadn't seen Elsie in months or something like that. And saying like, I'll always be there for you, baby, and just crazy stuff. So at this point, Ioan requests therapy for the kids. He thinks they need a little bit of assistance in being able to cope with this situation. Alice refuses. She doesn't think they need it. So March 1st is a date that Ioan files for divorce. And Alice, as we've said, she pretends to be blindsided like this is a big surprise. It's not. They've been in counseling and they've been negotiating this for some time. A couple days later, Alice is posting her stuff on her social media. And so she describes her daughter, the youngest daughter, learning about the divorce because Alice showed her an article about it in the Daily Mail. And that Elsie ran away crying and screaming. And then at this point, Alice decides she's no longer going to go along with the visitation that they had previously agreed on. So the visitation is kind of in chaos. She's posting all kinds of crazy stuff around this time on the internet, these like drunken videos, saying all kinds of unpleasant things. So throughout March, Ioan is FaceTiming with the girls, but Alice is interfering with those. She's standing over them. She's listening in. She's, shouting answers in the background. She's, inserting herself into the process. So Ioan attempts to establish like a visitation schedule with the daughter's therapist. Alice doesn't like that, so Alice fires the therapist and continues to triangulate the children against Ioan. So by this point, already within just a couple months of the split and within a month of the divorce, the visitation has dwindled. They've got overnights on Saturdays and then some FaceTime calls. I don't know why it keeps jumping like that. April 2021, Alice is just continuing to abuse and berate him on all of their communication channels that they have. There's what I've described as the mooning incident. Ioan describes this in one of his documents where he goes to drop the children off at her house, and Alice comes out and drops them, shows him what's in the trunk. And so that kind of freaks him out a little bit. And Alice is telling the children at this point that all of the conflict is Ioan's fault because he's the one that wants the lawyers involved. So if he just didn't have the lawyers involved, everything would be fine and mommy would be placated. But because the lawyers are involved, that's why there's all this difficulty. So by the middle of April, the collaborative attorney, he's out. And so Ioan has a new attorney, a litigator. Oh, that's why it's doing that. I see. And so by May, the oldest daughter has started to leave the visits early. They do begin going to therapy. They start this visitation schedule of 2-2-5-5, so 2 days each and then 5 days each. They begin that straight away with the younger daughter, who's kind of been she's just been handling the separation better. And then the older daughter is going to work up to it in therapy. July 9th of 2021, Alice sends Ioan a video message where, among other things, she tells him, "I'm going to litigate the fuck out of you." So just a little portending what is to come. And just kind of showing that this has been the plan all along. 5 years later, not really a surprise. 5 years ago, she said this is exactly what she was going to do. So in late July 2021, Ioan blocks Alice from his text messages, his email, all that type of stuff, tells her to only communicate through this Our Family Wizard. It's one of those apps that the family courts use to kind of be able to monitor communications through between high conflict spouses. So he wants no communication with her through these other channels. And the reason why is evident when we get to his DVRO petition, because he files like 70 some pages of the abusive, threatening, harassing, blackmailing, stuff she's constantly sending him. And, he has kind of had enough of that. I did do a video about the DVRO, by the way, way back. God, I was making videos about this case like 3 years ago. Can't believe how long it's been. So I did in one of those go through what, actually, I think it might have taken two. I've taken 2 videos to go through everything Alice did that was the justification for the DVRO. So she's blocked, only communicate through Our Family Wizard. Late July, Ioan has to go work. He's in France. At this point, he meets up with Bianca. So Bianca is an actress who he had met her originally on the set of Harrow several years before. She is Australian. It filmed in Australia. And so they had struck up, as he describes it, just, a friendship. And then once he and Alice split up, he started communicating with Bianca more because she was also going through the end of a relationship. And so they were kind of commiserating with each other. Well, that, led them to have some mutual interest. And so they decided that they would, get together at this point. Now he meets up with Bianca here in July, but I don't think it actually was until September that Bianca joined him in France. He was there for several months. Now, at this point, when Ioan leaves Los Angeles, he does not see his youngest daughter again for quite some time. I said over a year with a question mark here because it's unclear. It might not be quite that long, but it's in the ballpark of 6, 7, 8 months at the least. There's one time when she was driving by with Gloria, the nanny, and they said, a few things, and that was the only contact he had. September 16th was the eldest daughter's birthday while Io was in France. Alice apparently had promised the daughters that she would not drink that day. She did. She got drunk. They had an argument about it. Elsie, the youngest daughter, sends Ioan a video of this argument where the older daughter is berating Alice to just be a mother. Just be a mother. And the Alice is like swearing at the daughter, called her like a tedious bitch, I think, and feeling really, really sorry for herself. Nobody has ever suffered as much as Alice. On October 27, 2021, Alice has found out about Bianca. And Ioan gets a phone call from, I believe it's from his youngest daughter's phone number. And he picks up the phone and he hears Alice's voice and she says, Bianca Wallace. That was her name, Bianca Wallace. And so Ioan hangs up the phone and they kind of freak out because they know she's gonna lose it. And so they decide on very short notice, well, Alice is going to blow something up. So we're going to just go ahead and announce that we're in this relationship now. And so they do this quick Instagram reveal, little post. They went Instagram official in response to this phone call. So right in this time frame, Alice is now, she's continuing her social media rampage. She's claiming they had a 3-year affair because she thinks since they met on the set of Harrow, that means naturally that they were together the entire time. Of course, that is not the case. But this had a severe effect on Ioan's relationship with the youngest daughter. She, at this point, he describes her as just being much more distant, just much more damaged. And so not clear if that's, the new relationship or if that's Alice's handling of it. But either way, this was a particularly bad incident for the youngest daughter. During November, Alice is using the daughter's phone to text abuse to Ioan, since she can't do it on her own phone because she's blocked. At the end of November, Ioan is back in Los Angeles. And then in December, he has got visitation scheduled with his youngest daughter. He's supposed to pick her up at school. That's been their previous arrangement. And he gets an email from Alice that she's contacted the police and they're going to intervene if he tries to pick up Elsie at school. Also, during this time frame, Alice is posting drunken videos of herself on Instagram, and she prevents Ioan from having any visitation with the kids during the holidays. On December 29th, there's an incident now where the oldest daughter hacks his Amazon account and buys a bunch of stuff. When he contacts her and reprimands her for doing that, she says that that is abusive for him to be reprimanding her. So now Ioan decides that he needs the girls to be in counseling, potentially all of them in counseling, just whatever. They need assistance before the girls can go back to his apartment because it's not safe. But Alice never takes them to their counseling. February 3rd, he gets Ann Kiley. Ann Kiley was probably best known as Brad Pitt's lawyer. How well did that work out? Not sure that was the precedent I would be looking for or hoping for in a situation like this. February of 2022, Ella has been going to this private school. So Alice had sent, kind of unilaterally sent the oldest daughter to this private school. Brentwood, it was called. And it's, I don't know, it's a private school. It's famous people's kids go there and stuff like that. Ioan had been opposed to it because he already knew they couldn't afford it. But Alice went ahead and enrolled Ella in the school anyway that fall. So in the spring, Ioan tells her he's not going to be able to afford to continue sending her there. And this causes a big incident. So now the daughter hacks his Instagram. She posts that he can't afford to send her to school because he's spending all his money on a movie about Bianca's life, which is a narrative that Alice has also been kind of putting out there in various places. She also threatens that she's going to call CPS if he does not send her to the private school. So things are definitely deteriorating quite badly now with the children. So mid-February is when Ioan files his petition for the DVRO. If you have not looked at any of this, well worth looking at. If nothing else, look at this. This will give you the full flavor of everything you need to know about who these people are and what this whole situation is about, what this man tolerated and according to Alice apparently is expected to continue tolerating like forever. The threats, the abuse, the demeaning, I mean, it's just on, it just goes on and on, like every type of psychological abuse you can imagine. It's there in writing in her own words. The same day, Alice files this declaration where she basically says, well, I haven't seen the petition, but I didn't do anything wrong, so I deny everything. She projects, right? She projects that Ioan is going to accuse her of making fake social media accounts to, say bad things. And the reason why this is a projection is because it's Alice herself that does this. She's been doing this for years. She runs around on the internet with fake accounts to say great things about her and say bad things about whoever her nemesis is. Currently seems to be doing that mostly on the Daily Mail comment section. But they have some indications down the road that she was doing this on Twitter after the DVRO was entered. So anyway, she's projecting this. I'm saying that very specifically because it's something that she does, but says, you know, they're going to be doing that. So here's the DVRO making its entrance, right? It's not me, it's them. They're the ones doing it. She's worried he's going to make things up to make me sound like I'm an abuser. Well, no, he didn't need to make anything up. He had like 75 pages of you abusing him. So didn't need to make anything up. And at this point, she also files an answer to the divorce petition. She wants full custody of the kids. Ioan had asked for split 50-50 custody. Alice wants 100% custody. So now the threat to take the kids away. There it is. In March of 2022, Alice starts a narrative of destitution. She's going to be homeless. She's going to lose her house. She and the girls are going to lose a house. They're going to be out on the street. But we find out subsequently through the financial discovery, every single time she's made a claim like this, she's had a significant amount of money available to her. So at the very first time she's claiming it, she had $150,000 in cash in the bank, like cash. Literally accessible liquid assets that she can go use to buy whatever she wants. In April of 2022, up to this point, okay, remember, it is now a year and a month after the divorce petition has been filed, year and 4 months after the separation. He has been paying for her credit card the entire time. She's had her credit card for just whatever the hell she buys. He's been paying for it the whole time. In April, he stops. He stops that. And so then in May, Alice formally files her notice that the collaborative divorce process is done. We are litigating. June 13th, her attorney withdraws. And rather than hire a new attorney, Alice decides to go pro se. Now, we don't know exactly why the attorney withdrew. Not real clear. This is in the middle of the DVRO. The petition's been filed. They requested to continue the hearing multiple times. So the hearing doesn't end up taking place until August. This is kind of in the middle of all of it. You know, they don't say why they're withdrawing, but it's a little unusual, little telling. Seems to be one of those fundamental breakdown in the attorney-client relationship types of situations. But Alice decides, yeah, she's going to proceed pro se. So that's itself a pretty good indication. It's probably the lawyer who made this decision and not her. Alice starts tweeting about, you know, fuck the TRO. I'm going to break it anyway. The DVRO, it prohibited her from basically harassing him on social media. So you can talk about whatever you want. You have freedom of speech, but you don't get to harass and defame, you know, your fellow, your ex-spouse. So she doesn't like that. She wants to be able to disparage him at will. So at this point, she decides, I'm not going to hold my tongue anymore. He cheated, left ghosted, all of which are untrue. And he got the TRO. Fuck it, I'm breaking it. People need to know. In June 19th, she sets up her GoFundMe. Now, this is one of the other times she's claimed poverty. And we find out subsequently when she claims she is like down to her last dollars and needs help hiring a lawyer and yada yada. She had $86,000 in cash available to her at that time. And when I say in cash, this is just what's known. Okay, this is because there seem to be some sources of income available to Alice that are a bit mysterious, and so we'll get to that in a minute. But yeah. Sets up her GoFundMe, claiming she's down to her last dollars. but she's got 86,000 in cash at the time. In July of 2022, she's still tweeting madness. She is sharing texts with his children. This came up at the hearing today. The judge was seriously unimpressed with that. She texts that he's spending all his money on Bianca. I only have $2,000. Fuck the TRO. In July of 2022, Ioan at this point files a petition for custody and visitation of the children because they have nothing formal in place. They had been doing this collaborative process. Everything was by agreement, hadn't litigated. Now it's becoming unmanageable, and there needs to be an order. So he files the petition. August of 2022 is the DVRO hearing, and Alice doesn't hire a lawyer, doesn't show up. So yeah, that does not prevent it from being entered. Of course, it gets entered. And that's going to set the stage for a lot of where we are today. The fact that this DVRO was issued in August of 2022, less than 4 years ago, that's going to end up being a little bit of a problem. So in August 2022, later, like a couple weeks later, Alice hires this new lawyer, Marie La Molinera. So Marie is her lawyer for some time. And they are able to negotiate an agreed custody order. And so under this order in 2022, the girls are going to be in therapy. Ioan's going to pay for it. He's going to have visitation on Saturdays from 10 to 4. And then he's going to have FaceTime calls with them 3 times a week. In November of 2022, Alice is still claiming poverty. Now she claims to have $200 in the bank. Actually, she has $25,000 in cash at the time. You notice she's going through the cash, right? Notice she's going through the cash. Where is the cash going? Your guess is as good as mine. 150K in March, 86K in June. It's down to 25 by November. Okay, this woman can spend. On December 2nd of 2022, Ioan files a petition to sell the family home. He can't afford to keep it up anymore. The mortgage payment is like $6,500, $6,000 or so a month. And then all of the maintenance and upkeep and stuff like that, he's having to pay for a separate house. And at this point, Alice's smear campaign is starting to have some effect. He's having a little bit more difficulty getting work. So petitions to sell the family home, and also in part because Alice has embarked upon her, threat that I'm going to litigate the fuck out of you. And so he knows that they are going to need money to pay for lawyers. And this is the only resource they have at this point. January 12th of 2022, Alice files a declaration where she declares under penalty of perjury that her quote unquote savings are down to $13,000. And she accuses Ioan of being able, he's just pretending like he could really pay the mortgage if he wanted to. He's just trying to strong arm me. So she doesn't want she doesn't want the house to be sold. She wants him to continue to have to pay to keep her in the house. And part of the reason for that is because the house had been, according to Ioan, they were like on the verge of foreclosure. And then Alice said, well, but they were behind by like 2 payments, but he was able to come up with the money to be able to pay those 2 payments. And so, he must be just pretending. He obviously has access to resources. He can just keep doing that. So Ioan files a reply where he says he got a loan from his parents to be able to pay off, the late mortgage payments. And this is where he starts to draw attention to his career diminishing, just as Alice wanted, just as she threatened, just as she said she was going to do with her smear campaign. It's working. He's not able to get anywhere near the work that he got before. So in January, the order is entered. The house is going to be sold. They bifurcated custody from the other issues in the divorce. They immediately distribute $400,000 from the proceeds. So $110,000 is going to each party. And this is supposed to be to, pay your living expenses and stuff like that. The rest, the what does that leave us? $180,000 was evenly split between the lawyers. So we're already $180,000 in the hole just for lawyer fees. In this time frame, Alice gets criminally charged with violating the DVRO. And she doesn't show up for her arraignment. So a bench warrant is issued, and she ends up having to go in and surrender herself on this bench warrant. So she's facing 2 criminal charges of violating a no contact order. Based on that, in February, they continue the custody hearing that Ioan had petitioned for out until July. It was supposed to be, I think, in late February or early March at this point in time. But Alice says, well, you know, I got a Fifth Amendment problem, you know, because I got these criminal charges and there's overlap and so forth. So please continue it. It's a courtesy of the court to do that. I wonder if they regret doing it, because in hindsight, this was a terrible call. They should not have done it. They're not obligated to do it, but they did her that solid, and we'll see how she repaid them with that. So they continued the custody hearing, and as a result, custody did not come before the court for yet another several months. Kicked it down the road to July, and then in the meantime, in March, they dismiss the criminal case. They decide they're not going to pursue it. In May, Alice finally moves out of the family home, and she picks an apartment in Beverly Hills where the rent is $6,500 a month. It costs more than the house that she just moved out of that they had to sell because they can't afford it. So your guess is as good as mine on what the thought process was here about why that was a good idea. But clearly going to be unsustainable. Ioan called it out early on as unsustainable. It ended up being unsustainable to the surprise of nobody except maybe Alice. I don't know. May 18th of 2023, Ioan requests, look, bifurcate marital status. Get me the fuck out of this marriage, okay? Terminate this fucking marriage. Like, if nothing else, if we can't get anything else done, can you at least, like, restore my status as a separate entity from this horrible thing over there? May 30th of 2023, Alice's lawyer withdraws, mysteriously, suddenly withdraws, and then lo and behold, the following day, the oldest daughter files a domestic violence petition against Ioan and Bianca. Now, this whole thing, as it turns out, is a setup. Alice has contacted Io, and she has offered, see, this whole time she has opposed the daughters visiting him at his house. She doesn't want Bianca around the kids. She doesn't want the kids to meet Bianca. She's terrified that Bianca, you know, the kids might like Bianca. So they've had like little to no, they haven't had overnight visits, had minimal, minimal contacts. So out of the blue, Alice is offering to send the girls over for an overnight, and it's time they meet Bianca and yada yada. Well, Ioan, I think his radar kind of goes off. He's like, well, not totally sure I'm buying this, because he ends up having a child psychologist present for this visit to observe, which turns out to be, I think, an extremely smart move. Because from the beginning, this visit was pretty clearly a sham. It was a setup to do exactly like what they did. Probably had worse plans, but the presence of a witness didn't allow it to go worse than it did. So this is the incident. It's been like the Daily Mail's favorite thing to be hammering on recently. An incident where the oldest daughter was she's going around the house, like FaceTiming with her friends, or like on a Discord video or something like that. I don't even know. And just being very disparaging. And at some point she dumps milk on the bed, and she uses mustard to write like fuck on the countertops and stuff like that. And ends up like running out of the house. She pushes Bianca and runs out of the house, and claims that Bianca slammed her head in the door. There's also a neighbor who is kind of been aware of the situation. She has like supervised some of the visits as well. And she happens to be there when this happens, so she sees it go down. And of course, Bianca did not slam her head in the door. It's not what happened. So anyway, that's the basis for this DVRO petition. Well, it's interesting because the temporary order was denied. When you apply for a DVRO, you get you typically get a temporary order first, and then go back for a permanent order. But in this case, the ex parte temporary order, it was denied. The judge wasn't going to go there on this showing. So they end up having a hearing on it down in June. And the DVRO hearing, yeah, doesn't really go well. Doesn't really go well. I mean, the judge is not going to be mean to a kid, but the judge is pretty clearly aware. He can see what the situation is, and so ultimately, you know, the child kind of admits, well, yeah, you know, this didn't really happen like this, and it wasn't really, you know, that bad, or, and yeah, I kind of was an asshole too, this sort of thing. So they end up denying the DVRO as to Bianca, like, right away. They continue it for Ioan because they want to get some other folks involved now. Now, on the June 23rd hearing, one of the like safeguarding issues that we have with Alice and her children is her exploitation of them on her social media and through the paparazzi. So Daily Mail has been showing up for court, and a variety of other things. They mysteriously appear in Trader Joe's parking lots when Alice happens to be there with her kids. And they take photographs of her and the kids, and they publish photographs of her and the kids, which tends to raise an implication that, you know, probably she's approved it. Tend to be standards about things like that in England, if not so much in the UK, in the USA. But you know, Daily Mail being a British tabloid and all. So they were outside for this hearing, and they papped the kids and Alice. And Alice reposts these pictures on her Instagram, her kids crying and upset after court. And Alice reposts this on her Instagram. That's how much she wants the likes. She will share her kids' trauma for likes. So June 27th now, Alice gets a new lawyer. Now we have Bernal. Bernal is her lawyer for a while. The next day, the one thing Ioan wanted, like, just get me formally divorced. Now Alice wants to continue that too. Alice wants to continue that too. No, we need time to think about it because of my new lawyer. What the fuck is there to think about, lady? You are getting divorced. You cannot force the man to stay married to you. Okay? Get that through your goddamn coercive abuser mind. He is not going to stay with you. So that was denied. That request was denied. No, you're not continuing that. You are getting your ass fucking divorced. The people they wanted to get involved primarily was this minors council. They wanted to have an attorney appointed to represent the children. And so that happened at the end of June. July 3rd, they formally dissolved the marriage, and Ioan is a free man. On July 13th, they managed to enter this order, agreed order. It calls for therapy for the children. So now we are going to start doing reunification therapy because the alienation of the children has gotten quite bad with this DVRO incident. You know, that's quite an escalation. It's a very difficult situation for everybody to have to be in. It's not really a safe situation for anybody to be in. So now we've got reunification therapy on the table. We've got individual therapy. And another one of these provisions was that the youngest daughter was not to change schools unless Ioan agreed or they got a court order. August 9th of 2023 is when we get a statement from Alice of what she considers the disputed issues in the case to be. Now, at this point in time, she says that the premarital agreement is not an issue. She signed it. It appears to be valid. It's not an issue. And so that would mean spousal support, which is called for in the premarital agreements, laid out what the calculation is. That also would not be at issue. So at this point in time, back in 2023, what was at issue was child support, property division, and who was going to pay for the attorney fees. Those were the issues. August 10th of 2023, Ioan requests a child custody evaluation, and he asks for an order for therapy and visitation because, surprise, surprise, previous orders, they don't mean much. Orders don't mean much to Alice. And so it wasn't being complied with. Alice opposes this because in her view, she literally says, okay, like, I'm not exaggerating. She's like, they're not showing signs of emotional trauma like self-harming. Okay. The kids have to be that bad in her mind to like warrant therapy. The mere fact, like the whole DVRO situation wasn't a red flag, I guess. Didn't suggest to you that maybe your kids could use a little help processing what they're having to go through. No. She also likes to blame, she's, classic abuser, likes to blame Ioan. He hasn't spoken to the kids in 11 weeks. I wonder why the fuck not? Like, seriously? She thinks they can't afford the evaluation. She doesn't want it, so she opposes it. August 16th of 2023, she unilaterally puts Elsie in a different school against the court order. Orders mean nothing. Orders mean nothing. In late August, they do appoint a custody evaluator. Dr. Suzanne Dupay is appointed to do the custody evaluation. In October of 2023, Alice starts texting Ioan wanting money. She wants more money. She claims she can't pay her rent. She wants more money. And she tells him it won't be possible to continue the things we're doing to fix your relationship with the kids if we have to move or like be further away. It's this nice, subtle little implied shame if something happened to this reunification, isn't it? At this point in time, this is where Alice starts showing mystery income in her finances, in her bank accounts. Mystery deposits of 10,000 here, 12,000 there, 11,000 here, every month or so for several months. That's during this time frame. So she wants money, but she's receiving mystery 10 to 12,000 a month. Shame if something happened to that reunification. So in December 2003, they do another order now where they distribute another $122,000 from the proceeds of the house sale, which, by the way, the house was Ioan's separate property. It was pretty much his house. So he's paying for all of this. So another $122,000 down the tubes for legal related costs. All of the rest of the house proceeds get distributed to Ioan, except for $150,000 that stay in this blocked account. And that is to pay for future expenses or just, whatever they agree ultimately. They reached an agreement for interim child support of $3,000 per month and an advance of spousal support of $7,000 per month. Ioan is quite clear this is intended to help Alice become self-sufficient. It's to help her get on her feet. It's to help her, be able to hopefully locate to somewhere where she might be able to afford a little bit better. The rent, maybe go back to school. I mean, whatever. It's meant to get her back on her feet, not to be an expectation of what she'll be getting in the future. February 14 of 2024, Dr. Dupay files a custody evaluation report. These are confidential. They are highly confidential. There are severe penalties for disclosing the contents of these evaluation reports to anyone outside of a very narrow class of individuals who have the right to be able to see them. So we don't know what it says, but Alice has sure dribbled little bits and pieces out that she wants us to know about, because in her view, the custody evaluation went in her favor. February 14th, Bernal withdraws. So we got third lawyer down for Alice. February 28th, 2024, Ioan moves to reopen discovery and continue the custody trial. This is his response to the custody evaluation. So it's clear he doesn't like what the evaluator concluded or had to say. So, and he states in his motion, like, he thinks that there were quite a bit of things that were the evaluator did not address, or, you know, addressed in a negligent fashion. March of 2024, Janina Verano appears for Alice. Janina is her current lawyer. Not quite 2 years in, so she's been there in court. From March to August of 2024, Ioan has no contact with the kids during this time frame. That's how bad things have gotten, even with the reunification therapy and everything, which Alice has just continuously interfered with. He's laid out several times, like, just descriptions of here's why they didn't go to this session, here's why this next session ended early, here's what happened at this other session. Here's one session where she came in and, like, threw herself on the ground, and he says pretended to have a panic attack, and she gets very offended and says, I had a hypertensive crisis, I have to take heart meds now. I don't know. But either way, reunification is not being encouraged. So March to August, Ioan has no contact with the kids. By May 2024, they sign this custody stipulation, and this is going to be at issue now. So the custody stipulation, it provided for joint legal custody, Alice to have primary physical custody, and reasonable visitation to Ioan. So basically, she ends up with the children full time. This has turned out to be a problem. And the reason why is because this custody stipulation, this is an agreement they made, but this is not a final order or a final judgment by the court. And so what happened apparently at the pretrial conference, and the judge reiterated today in the morning session when we first got into court, there's a problem with this, because remember back in August of 2022, when the domestic violence restraining order was entered, that's a finding that Alice committed domestic abuse. And California has this law, Family Code 3044, that establishes a presumption that custody of the children, it's not in the children's best interest to be placed with somebody who has been found to have perpetrated domestic violence within the last 5 years. Well, that's Alice. And so the judge has already signaled, I can't make those findings. There are things that you have to do that are laid out in the rule. You need to take a batterer's treatment program. You need to, I think, do drug and alcohol testing. Like, there's a list of things that have to be done to overcome this presumption that it's not in the kid's best interest to be with her. So the judge has already signaled he can't sign, he can't make this custody stipulation a judgment. Something else is going to have to happen. And it's really not clear what that is. It's not clear if they can just, like, fix the stipulation, make it better. They can't really stipulate to things that are not true. Like, Alice has not completed a 52-week batterer's program. So they can't, like, stipulate that she's met those requirements. Can't really take the kids away from Alice either, even though that would have been the best thing to do way back when. Remember when they kicked the custody hearing down the road because Alice didn't want to go to jail? Yeah, might have been better to deal with it then, but they didn't. And now it's a little too far down the road. So that was May 2024, and it's not going to hold up. Don't know how that's going to get dealt with, but that is one of the situations that we are having to deal with now in this court hearing. May of 2024, Alice now is, again, she's going to be evicted, going to be homeless. She actually received $11,000 in undisclosed mystery income when she is publicly claiming she's about to be evicted. June of 2024, she's sending harassing emails to Ioan's mother. July of 2024, she files a request for order for support, maintenance, fees, and to sanction Ioan. She thinks he should be sanctioned because his litigation conduct has been inappropriate. Back to the DVRO. Back to the DVRO. August of 2024, Alice moves to delay or limit her own deposition. She doesn't want to have to talk about anything related to her parenting or custody because they've stipulated it. So her view is that's no longer relevant. We took it off the table. So you can't ask me anything about my abuse of the girls. Give me a second here. I gotta plug in my okay. So she wants an order that she can't be questioned about those things at her deposition. She also wants it to be delayed. Those are both denied. No, Alice, you're not special. You got to do the same things as everybody else. August of 2024, she claims she's filing for public assistance. She's going to be a welfare. She's going to be a welfare mom, guys. She's going to be a welfare mom with her 10,000 mystery a month, her 100,000 in savings and so forth. Yeah, she's going to apply for food stamps. Literally put that in a public document, probably so it would be picked up by the Daily Mail and her good friend Alison Bischoff, which in fact it was reported in the Daily Mail. Oops. August of 2024, Ioan is claiming that he has overpaid her spousal support by $400,000. $400,000. He's overpaid her, and yet she's destitute. But now Alice wants to litigate the validity of the premarital agreement. Remember before when she did her statement of disputed issues and she said it's fine? Now she says it's not. Between January of 2023 and May of 2024, according to Ioan's forensic accountant, Alice has spent about $16,000 a month. And you can look through the breakdown of what is spent on, and it's like, where the hell did this go? Where did this go? You got $6,500 in rent a month. So that's obviously a big expense. Where's the other $9,000 going? I mean, it's honestly kind of nuts. At this point, she's interfering with the reunification therapy. This is where she did the throwing herself on the floor. Ioan says she faked a panic attack. She claims I had a malignant hypertensive episode. Who knows? She didn't belong in the counseling session anyway. September 29th, they filed the custody stipulation. There was like a whole litigation over should it be sealed or should it be public? And they ended up like sealing some of it. Some of it was public. Some of it was redacted. Had to have a whole bunch of litigation about that. Alice really wanted it out there. She really did. October 23rd, 2024. Now, this is a hearing that I went to. I went to this hearing. And this was the incident. I don't know if you guys are new, you don't know about this, but if you are not new, then you remember well when Alice jumped up in the middle of the court to try to take a picture of me and Ioan, because we were sitting in sort of proximity, and she was trying to claim that like we were canoodling in courts. Yeah, I was sitting there like minding my business in the back as I do, and she like jumps over to try to take a photo of me. Well, photos in court are like a real big no-no. They got signs all over this courthouse saying don't do that. So she got in some trouble with the bailiff, and Yeah, had to delete it and stuff like that. And that's come back around because that came back up at the hearing again today as well, because Ioan is arguing that that is one of her violations of the DVRO. That, she was attempting to photograph him in court, and I think he's probably right about that. She wanted a picture of both of us. But at this hearing, what ended up happening is they set interim support, child support at $3,000, maintenance at $1,500. So she gets $4,500 a month from Ioan to live on. Not bad, not bad, right? It's about $48,000 a year. It's not a ton for somewhere like LA, but what do you need to live in LA for anyway? Certainly don't need to live in a $6,500 a month apartment in Beverly Hills. Alice also gets this thing called a Gavron warning. A Gavron warning is based on a case out of California that says that divorced spouses have a duty to make reasonable efforts to become self-sustaining. You don't get to just sit back and cash maintenance checks. You're a grown-ass woman. You have an obligation to look out for yourself. So the warning is telling her that if you don't make reasonable good faith efforts to become self-sustaining, then you can be denied support, or support can be reduced. So she gets that warning. Another $65,000 is distributed to the lawyers. I've lost track of what we're up to now. I think we're over 300 already. Spent a lot of money on the lawyers already. We find out from the financial analysts that throughout 2024, Alice has received about $130,000 for her use. Ioan, by the time he has paid Alice and everything, has netted about $121,000. So she's out there claiming poverty. She's got more money than he does. May of 2025, Ioan files to renew the domestic violence restraining order. That is the primary thing that we are dealing with in this hearing as of right now. So that's what today's testimony addressed. And I swear we'll get to that. We'll get to that soon. You guys can see why I could not do a 3-minute short video on get us up to speed on this case. It's way too much. Alice files a motion the same day, a supplemental declaration. So in his application to renew the domestic violence restraining order, among the grounds that Ioan is asserting is she's violated it multiple times. And so there are several things that are described. Just there's communications. There's a time where she barged into the parent-teacher conference that he had scheduled at the school. There was time that she's honking her horn and, like, you know, flipping her finger off at him on the road. But there was like this super creepy stuff about how they had moved because they didn't want her to know where they were anymore. And so they deliberately kept their address secret. They weren't seeing the kids. So, and like the custody has been stipulated, he doesn't have custody. So she doesn't need to know. She can talk to the lawyers. Well, somehow she finds out because a pap shows up at their house looking for him. But a little more directly to Alice, her mail shows up at her house. Somebody has sent Alice's mail to Ioan's house. Alice, of course, has denied that she does any of these things. I don't know. I have no interest in them or whatever. But this same day, she files a declaration. And in her declaration this day, she is talking about their new apartment. She's trying to talk about how hard done by she is, and, you know, can't afford anything decent, you know, good apartment and good quality of living. Meanwhile, they've been able to move into this new apartment for X number per month with a fitness center and a pool and nice indoor natural lighting. Like, how the fuck do you know, honey? You're not supposed to know that, but you stalked them. You stalked them, and you found that out. She admitted in her own declaration that she knew where they were, and she wasn't supposed to know that. And so she stalked them. Oh, what a bad move. July of 2025, Ioan starts aggressively asserting that Alice claiming to be destitute is all false. It is a lie. There's another hearing I went to in July of 2025. This one was supposed to be an evidentiary hearing, but the judge at this point is like, I don't have time to deal with all of this. And so if you really can't work it out for yourselves, which like, no, they can't, dude. She's a fucking abuser and it's been 4 years already. Obviously, they can't work it out. Well, it needs to be set up with it needs to be transferred to a different judge, a different courtroom who will have the time and the availability to hear everything at the trial. So gets kicked down the road yet again. It's reassigned to Judge Michael Convey. He is who is hearing us today. In September, Janina files a notice of limited scope representation. This is basically saying that she is only representing Alice on certain matters and not all matters. She has since like undone that within, I don't know, the last week or so. November 25th of 2025, Alice files a motion for sanctions against Ioan. She's still trying to just litigate bullshit and try to get him spanked by the judge. Nothing has worked so far. This one was about she wanted his attorney fee invoices. Bitch, those are so confidential. Like, you can have the numbers, but you don't get to know what work was done and what they talked about and that type of thing. So she files this motion, and Ioan, objects to it, but he ends up providing them anyway. And then she doesn't strike her motion. So then he's got to respond. He's got to pay for that, right? That's part of the game that's been playing. I'll litigate the fuck out of you. Remember, she said that right at the very beginning. And in December and January, they had multiple mandatory settlement conferences. These are meetings where they get together with the judge, try to work things out. They were apparently able to stipulate to the validity of the premarital agreement, like primary thing that they agreed on, but seemingly very little else. And so that brings us to today. At long last, only took an hour to get us here. That brings us to today. So today was the day set for trial. And the trial is scheduled to be all of this week and all of next week. And the goal is they're going to deal with everything. The judges has made it clear we're trying to wrap this whole thing up. They've set kind of a check-in date in August of this year to like make sure everything is resolved. And that's kind of serving as their deadline for having all of this done. Off their desks. I got to imagine the judges get just as sick of seeing these files over and over and over again as everybody else does. Certainly I do. It's why I couldn't do civil litigation. I'm like, God, these cases just don't die. These cases just don't die. These people that want to litigate will just raise minutia over and over and over again. It's like the conflict is the point. When you're dealing with abusive people, the conflict is the point. And so the litigation is just an opportunity for conflict. And they'll take that opportunity every single chance they can get. So court started early today. It was about 8:30. When I got there, first thing I noticed is everybody's loaded down with like bankers' boxes of stuff. Everybody's got a lot of documents. So they're loaded for bear as far as their exhibits and things like that go. Multiple bankers' boxes of stuff. There's like a little bit of chaos, like getting everything organized. This goes to the clerk, this goes to the judge, that type of thing. When we first got there, so Alice, the way that the court is configured, of course, the judge is up at the top. The witness chair is to the judges, like from the judge's perspective, right-hand side, from the audience perspective, the left-hand side. The attorneys' tables are, right in front, and then you've got the court reporter on the witness side and the court clerk on the opposite side. And then the bailiff sits kind of to the left, the audience side of the court clerk, near kind of in the vicinity of the attorney table to the right. So Alice and her attorney are on the right, and Ioan and his team are on the left. And so that means that Alice is the closest one to the bailiff. And so at the very beginning, she was kind of like trying to play sweet, you know, love bomb the little bailiff a little bit. Having just a great time. Why not? I mean, it's a great day, I'm sure. You guys, you saw the clothes. I mean, I didn't think it was that bad, honestly, especially by Alice standards. She was wearing this, you know, blue and white striped shirt. Now, I will say when I saw it first, she had the coat on, and so it just looked like a boat neck kind of shirt. But she took the coat off in court, and once she took the coat off in court, you could see it had this like deep V in the back. And so I understand why there's some suspicion that it was just a shirt she had on backwards. It does look like a normal V-neck top that was turned around. Could be, you know, I don't know. People do make weird shirts these days. So maybe just a weird V-neck back. I don't know. The main reason I found it odd is because I just got to be frank with you guys. Alice does not have an attractive back. At all. Like, of all things to show off, the back should not be it. She's got that, you know, the build of the chronic alcoholic. It really looks on her. You see it in things like the jaw collapse. The arms and the legs are very, very spindly. When she gets her coat off, she's lost a lot of weight. You know, from where she started, but she still has just a lot of mass around the middle, and particularly like up high, like right under the ribs where your liver sits. I guess I can take this thing down now, the timeline. Anyway, so, you know, I didn't think she looked terrible. I really didn't. But I realize this is, you know, kind of by a bar of of what Alice normally likes to wear and be photographed in. But the back is, and she's very weak. That's what got me thinking about it. She's very weak. She has a dowager's hump, and she has like some fairly pronounced winged scapula, which is, you know, where your back is real weak, and so your shoulders just like kind of hang there. It's unattractive. So I don't know why she is showing off the back. It's not a good call. But other than that, I didn't think she looked terrible. Ioan mainly looked very stressed. He looked very stressed, very tired. He's just in a Navy suit. Yeah, he was not smiling and pretending to have a good time with the bailiff. It was a source of anxiety to him today, you could tell. There was a comment from the court about Court Connect. The clerk made some comment about Court Connect was down today. And I mentioned that mainly because I know there had been some issues in the past when folks appear by video, particularly Alice appears by video. They seem to have some tech difficulties, and there's maybe some question about why that is. It does seem that Court Connect is a fairly glitchy program. So anyway, they brought it up because if anyone was going to testify remotely, that wasn't going to be possible. Not today. So by 9 o'clock, court is in session, scheduled to start at 8:30, but you know, there's chatting by the lawyers and getting set up and things like that. So 9 o'clock, court is in session. Judge comes out. So who's Judge Convey? He's about, I would say, in his 70s. He's got white hair, white beard, fairly, you know, gruff. I guess you might describe him a little bit. Wears glasses. He likes to talk. He likes to talk. There is no question that he controls the courtroom. No question at all. He is in charge. He will cut people off. He will make his thoughts and his will very, very clear. Does not does not really pull any punches when it comes to how things are going to go and what his expectations are. He is very big on the dignity of the courtroom and of the process. Made a point of kind of bringing this up a few different times. First, in the introductory part, where he was he was explaining there's like other high-profile cases. I'm sure he meant the Nick Reiner case. Nick Reiner was arraigned this afternoon, and so he was saying the bailiffs are kind of a pool, and so they might have to like get called out to respond to something, and if they do, we might just have to deal with that. And so please, everybody, just be respectful of each other and patient and calm and civil and behave responsibly. Very important to the dignity and decorum of the court. Everybody gave formal introductions to the judge, and the main thing I noticed is that when Janina introduces Alice, Alice does a big smile to the judge. Ioan did not. He just was there, you know, acknowledged. We addressed our schedule. Tomorrow they are starting late at 10 o'clock because the judge has a medical appointment. And then on Wednesday, they are not going to be in session in the afternoon because Janina has a prior obligation. So it'll be late start tomorrow, morning only Wednesday, full day on Thursday. Friday is not clear. I'm not sure. I kind of got the impression maybe we're not having court on Friday. So I'm going to have to clarify that, but I don't know at this point in time. The judge also reminded everybody that no recording is allowed. Taking notes, of course, is perfectly okay. It's a public courtroom. People are allowed to attend and to take notes, and so please follow those rules. Whoa. Hang on a sec, guys. Okay. Sorry about that. So then he started with some matters that came up last week that needed to be revisited. So first off, the plan right off the bat was to hear the evidence on the DVRO renewal, because that is going to drive a lot of the decisions that are still at play in the rest of the case. So they had also had a discussion about Alice wanting to call Dr. Dupay, the child custody evaluator. She's put her on the witness list, talked about what she had concluded in her trial brief. The Ioan was quite upset about that filing because it's again revealing, you know, portions of the confidential report that are not supposed to be disclosed. And then that was picked up by the media, by the tabloid, by the Daily Mail, to publicize things about the relationship between Ioan and the children that really should not be out in the public domain. It is not in the children's interest for that to be out there. But here we are. So just reiterated that the problem is that the stipulation that they signed about the custody and the visitation, that has to be consistent with a judgment that the court has the ability to sign. And due to apparently a recent change in the law in California, which I think they mean is a case that came down that said, you don't get to just stipulate around these requirements. You don't get to just have the attorneys agree to do things a certain way. The judge has to make findings that these conditions are satisfied before you can give custody to the person who has been found to be an abuser. Alice has that finding from the original order. Judge is calling that out as a problem. Can't sign this the way that it's presented. So he asked if there had been any meet and confer. Janina said, first off, confirmed she had undone her notice of limited representation. She had substituted back in for Alice for all issues still pending in the court, including custody. Ioan has a different attorney handling his financial case and handling his custody case. And so the attorney that's been handling custody, her name is Avida Avedisian, She, Janina says she met and conferred with Azita, but they have yet to reach an agreement. Yesterday, Azita said that she objected to discussing custody and said she would not be appearing and is not available. And so Janina wants to ask that we revisit it after the hearing. She also said she got a rough draft of the transcript because she wasn't sure about exactly what the court had said. And she wanted some housekeeping. About the court proceedings, because hey, she wants to know, does live tweeting, there's been some live tweeting that happened before, does that violate the court rules? She was concerned about the live tweeting. Oh, so the judge said the rule is that you're prohibited from broadcasting while we're in session in the courtroom. And you know, his concern is the sort of classic concern of you know, the people that don't like cameras in the courtroom, that, you know, witnesses might listen in to what's going on when they've been excluded and stuff like that. So can't have broadcasting while in the courtroom, but if it's not in the courtroom and somebody is exercising their First Amendment rights, that is perfectly okay to do. And so please bring it to my attention if it does happen. It is a measure of control and decorum in the process. Again, the emphasis on decorum in the courtroom. So he states there is to be no recording, broadcasting, or transmission of any kind. Well, of course, I'm not video recording and I'm not broadcasting, and I'm really not transmitting any more than, you know, if you send any kind of message in court, that's a transmission. So I'm not, though. I mean, it's fine. I don't need to live tweet. But just found that funny that was like front and center, one of the things that they had to address. Really don't want it being live tweeted, I guess. So the judge agrees that until Azita is present, they can't really discuss the custody issues. They want that to happen during the trial. The judge is like, yes, at least before the case is submitted, because we don't want to have to set another hearing on it. He's like, we can if we have to. I'm like, Judge, don't open that door. Don't open that door. Make it get done. I think he knows that. But Janina proposed that basically they just continue to try to work on it and get Azita's availability. They had also resolved the issue of the trial brief that Alice filed that had the confidential parts of the custody report included in it. They agreed to redact it, so there was an agreement on the redactions, and indicated that was signed and should be in. So that was it. That was it for the preliminary matters before the court. And so we then proceeded to the renewal of the DVRO. The court is very formal, and so the court asks the parties, may I use your first names for ease of reference and not to be overly familiar with you. He just wants an easy way to be able to refer to people, and not have to be like, I don't know, Mrs. M and Miss and what's your title anyway and stuff like that. So they want to use first names. And then for the minor children, they want to use initials, but both of the children have the same initials. So they are using middle initials, which is making it very confusing, and nobody is doing it right. They are consistently just naming the children. But EB is the oldest child and EM is the youngest child. The judge also made a written note. He asked Ioan how to pronounce his name, and he made a written note of how to pronounce it. He thought it was Ian. He thought it was pronounced Ian. So he had to be. I'm still not great at pronouncing it either, I know, but I'm better than when I started, I guess. It's like Ioan. They call him Ioan. Joe calls him Ioan in court. That sounds like Joanne to me, but whatever. It doesn't matter, I guess. I'm sure he's dealt with it, certainly ever since he came to the US. They did not have opening statements. The judge asked if they wanted to give opening statements. Both of them waived opening statements. I don't love that. I don't hate it in the right circumstances. These are not those. The right circumstances are when you present your case as a story, because this judge is brand new. He's brand new to this, and he's, yeah, probably gone through and read the file, but he really doesn't know all of the ins and outs and all of the details of the case and stuff like that. So you really need to bring him up to speed on it, and you really need to, you know, hook him with why it matters. And we really didn't get that. We didn't get an opening, and then Joe conducts his direct examination very much around the exhibits. The exhibits drive the examination. And so what happens? Ioan gets sworn, and he's immediately directed to exhibits. Exhibit 12. This is the original request for the DVRO. Gets admitted. Janina is quibbling because at the transcript from the hearing, the court had excluded some parts of his declaration on hearsay grounds, but the judge kind of talked her out of it, out of that objection. He says he's not going to consider hearsay, and that they can object if there's like some issue with relevance, but the document itself is relevant. It will be admitted. The temporary order, Exhibit 13, was offered and admitted. Also the notes of continuance. Some questioning about Alice being represented by counsel at the hearings on March 22nd and June 14th. Both of these times, the DVRO hearing was continued. She was represented at both of those, but then neither she nor her attorney appeared at the August 22nd hearing, which according to Ioan took about 3 hours when the DVRO was finally issued. Exhibit 14, the permanent restraining order that was granted after hearing, that was admitted. Now this will be interesting. Admitted as Exhibit 64 is every single text message between Ioan and Alice between January 22nd of 2021 and July of 2021 when he blocked her and cut her off. So a lot of these text messages had been submitted as part of his DVRO application. And yeah, there's a lot there, but it didn't, you know, because he selected out what he was presenting. So it didn't always like read, you know, cleanly. You can't always get the context and stuff like that. So they offered them for purposes of being able to provide the full context and make it easier on the reader to understand, you know, what was going on and what led to what and so forth. So some of those had been highlighted in his declaration supporting the DVRO petition. They called out some of these messages. Now, this part of the examination became very difficult to follow out in the audience because they're talking about portions of text messages, but they are not like reading them into the record. So I don't know what they are necessarily, unless they say something about the text message that kind of clues me in, like, oh, it's that one, you know, it's where she said that. The focus at this point was on how did these messages affect you? What response did you have to them? So did you have a reaction? Ioan's reaction consistently, he was mortified, he was disturbed, he was very upset, he was yeah, those are like the main things. Sometimes embarrassed, but usually just upset, disturbed. This messages that they called out, she would dedicate her life to fighting him and she would share anything on social media. That particular message made him fear for his career and his public image, and that she would denigrate him publicly. This was not the first time that she had threatened to wage a social media campaign against him. On June 26th, there was a message where Alice had taken them out of the collaborative process. And because of all of these threatening and abusive texts that she had been sending, the counsels, the attorneys had asked her not to do that. Could you not? Could you not? Could you maybe just refrain? No, she couldn't. She couldn't. So she persisted for years. June and July messages, context for them was that Alice was abandoning any settlement. She was threatening litigation. At this point, they had a conversation about selling the house due to the costs of litigation. Now, this was important mainly just because Alice had been, crying on social media and stuff about how, they could never sell the house and stuff like that. She actually brought it up in these text messages. You're going to have to sell the house, and here's what we're going to get, and that type of thing. So again, like kind of pretending to be blindsided, but really wasn't. But the judge doesn't necessarily know that because he doesn't know this whole story. So he was devastated by them. That was another thing. Ioan was frequently devastated as his reaction to these messages. They were abusive and disturbing. He was saddened by the idea of having to sell the house and go on this journey of litigation that she was threatening. Ioan is he's very calm and measured when he speaks. He thinks about what he's going to say. He speaks somewhat formally. I mean, I think the judge, to the extent he likes dignity and decorum in the courtroom, he's going to very much appreciate Ioan. He speaks with dignity and decorum. It's like this is perfect. It's what you want. He has this lovely accent that I can never imitate. The Welsh accent. It's like the Queen's British, kind of. I mean, not quite the Queen's British. It's like a posh kind of British, but the R's are very different. That's like the best way I can describe it. I don't know. Maybe one of you guys can describe it a little better for me. But it's very, very pleasant. But it gives him a very formal type of affect in the courtroom. But emotionally, he presents as very guarded. He's not a like showy, demonstrative type of person or witness. And so I think because of that, these like, what were your reaction types of questions were very difficult for him to be able to kind of put into words the emotional experience. What didn't come across as like a real easy and natural thing for him to do. So some other ones, he was asked if there were any others that he wanted the court to consider beyond what was already highlighted. He pointed out a couple. There was one from May 23rd where she said, there's no going back now. You think you've got a bad reputation now. You think I'm going to stop talking. I'm going to dedicate my life to like making sure people know what you've done, kind of thing. And he found that very threatening because he was concerned. He was starting to become concerned about how he was going to provide for my children if she were to undertake this smear campaign. So for Ioan, like right off the bat, providing for his kids is what he is afraid she's going to take away from him. Next message down. Oh shit, I forgot. I have you on tape talking about the cast and crew of Harrow and how many grams of cocaine they bought or you bought. Yeah, that's a little blackmaily. That's a little blackmaily. And he was concerned about her creating a public false narrative and her threats to take those narratives public. And in fact, that was borne out to be true. That was objected to as non-responsive and sustained. When it comes to objections and so forth, the judge is also quite formal on those. The one thing that he does that is not particularly formal is he will ask the witness questions. He will interject. Sometimes he will ask permission. May I interject? May I ask a question? Well, you're the judge. Like, you say if you can or not. So nobody's going to tell him no, right? So he does step in from time to time and ask his own questions. But when it comes to the objections and things like that, he does, it seems like, take a very, and he appreciates the formality of the process and the reasons why the rules are the way that they are. Doesn't always grant them by any stretch of the imagination, but he does grant plenty. And they handle objections very efficiently. You know, state it. It's like, thank you. Finally, we can get out of the horrid speaking objections, even though it doesn't matter in this case because there's no jury here. It's just the judge. You can do a speaking objection, but they really don't. They really do just say objection, hearsay, objection, facts not in evidence, objection, relevance. And he just says sustained, overruled. It's kind of a nice change of pace. So then, let's see. So then we go back to his DVRO application and we start looking through some of those. So this whole initial process, like this whole morning, is really just spent revisiting stuff that for the most part we already know. The judge at one point brings up this case Ritchie. There's it's a California case, Richie Factors, establish what the judge is supposed to consider when it comes to reevaluating, like reissuing a restraining order. And so he's supposed to consider, first off, the original factual predicate for the order. The second thing he's supposed to consider is whether there's been a change of circumstances that means it's no longer necessary. And the third thing he's supposed to consider is, does it impose any kind of particularly difficult burden on the respondent? So most of the first part of the morning was spent on this factual predicate side. And a big part of the reason for that, I think, is because in the Ritchie case, they talked about a lot of time, like, you don't have to prove a violation to get a reissuance. You just have to show reasonable fear that they're going to violate it again. And so sometimes the initial allegations will be of such a nature that, like, you can make that finding just off of the original basis for the DVRO. So it seemed pretty clear they wanted to go in pretty heavy on that early on. I mean, there's obviously real bad stuff in there. Like, it's, again, if you are new to the case, just go read the DVRO petition. Like, it really is the only thing you need to see. So yeah, so they focused a lot on this stuff that for the most part we already know about. So the first time we go back to the DVRO and we're looking at new messages and stuff, and now we're talking about Alice is publicizing details about the relationship with Bianca, and there's an objection to this, and the judge just makes it clear, like, I'm confused. I don't know what you're talking about. And he's telling Joe at this point, like, we're not relitigating the restraining order. We're just establishing the factual predicate because of the fact that I wasn't there. I wasn't the judge that heard it. And so I need to kind of be brought up to speed on why this order got issued in the first place. So it seems that what was at issue was a communication about Alice threatening to publish information on social media about his relationship with Bianca, because Ioan is asked, did she carry through on that threat? And he says, yes, she did. So for the context, he explained to the court, he began a relationship with Bianca in June of 2021. It became physical when she came to France in September of 2021. So basically, like, they were talking and became boyfriend girlfriend, like you do in middle school, before to do anything else. back in July of 2021, but they were on different continents, so they didn't actually like meet until September 2021. Alice smirked when he said that. She gives a little smirk. And Ioan testified that when Alice learned that, she started a rather caustic social media campaign asserting a 3-year affair. And she somehow found out about Bianca's private health issues, and so she revealed that to the public on her social media. Joe asked, did Alice ever reveal how she got that information? Janina objects to this on relevance grounds. That is overruled. And Ioan answers that she revealed later that she had a private detective on Bianca. I don't remember if this was something that she said on Twitter, in which case it's like, who knows? Like, who knows if it's true or not? It's very hard to take at face value, really, anything that Alice says. But on the other hand, she did find out somehow, so maybe she did get a private investigator on Bianca. Anyway, she said she did. He was devastated by the social media campaign. The false narrative that she was advancing was devastating and disturbing to them both, and he was fearful about how it would affect his image and career, and he felt helpless. That began to become a theme as well. The feeling, how did you react? How did you feel about this? He felt helpless a lot of the time. And as time goes on, he also starts to feel frustrated, you know, that's despite like having an order in place and things like that. Yeah, still can't get decent behavior. Another exhibit, again, I don't know what it says other than that there's a reference in it to Alice's brother. And in this one, he found this to be a threat of physical violence. So I think it was a tweet. I don't remember if it was Alice's tweet. There was a few. So her brother Tony was on Twitter for some time, and they would, like, I don't know, run around and yak about stuff and talk a whole bunch of shit. And then Tony died last year, and he had like quieted down a lot after Alice left Twitter shortly after I started making videos. I'm sure there's no correlation there. I put out my first video, and Alice published some posts. It was so classically Alice now in retrospect. I got to think about exactly what it said. It was something like, please don't do this, Andrea. Me and the girls would be devastated, right? It's the enmeshment with the children, and the using them as a shield is just absolutely nonstop. Anyway, she deleted shortly after that because I did in fact put out my video and others. So anyway, that was Tony, the brother situation. Again, there's so much context here that the judge doesn't know, but it took me an hour just to go through like a super brief timeline overview. I haven't even gone into like the whole social media record and stuff. Another threat of violence was a video that Alice posted. I suspect this was the notorious Marjorie video. She like did this very strange video where she got like under a table and pretended to be this person named Marjorie and put on a fake voice and said fake things, and but it got disturbing, and she made comments about cutting you. And he said he thought that was a threat of physical violence, and he found it disturbing, the video disturbing, and he began to be nervous about his personal safety and Bianca's personal safety. Next statement related to an interview that Alice gave on the Lorraine Show, which is a talk show over there in the UK. I guess, let me see, I think maybe it's not this one. So he saw the interview. It was about 10 minutes. His reaction, he was mortified that she had gone on the show to forward false narratives, denigrating myself and Bianca, and that she was acting and crying in the interview. And he knew that she was acting because shortly after the interview, he received an email with the subject line, "How's it going?" And in the body of the email, "Want more." The "want more" email. So he knew that this was based on that email. He knew that this was she had premeditated this intent to spread the falsehoods about him. Janina objects to this for lack of first personal foundation. That's overruled. Yep, he gets to draw inferences. The court is going to let him do that. He said he received some public backlash from the interview. It caused great embarrassment to his agents and his managers. Another thing that's described, page 26, paragraph 27. He's got an audio recording of what's described there. I'm pretty sure these are like sections from the DVRO application that they're just kind of talking through. But they don't get real specific, so I don't know exactly what they're referring to. We turn to a new exhibit now. This was an incident on November 17th of 2021, and this is an audio recording. And so how did the audio come into his possession? It was a voice clip, a voice message that had come from Elsie's phone. And it was sent to his phone. So the judge interjects at this point to ask, do you know if the daughter had sent it? And Ioan says, well, I don't know. I'm guessing it is from Alice because of the content of the message. It's Alice, Alice in the message. And that's, what the audio reflects. So there is a transcript of it as well. There's no objection to the transcript being admitted into evidence. When Joe wants to play the recording, the judge asks, is there a need to play it? And Joe says, in this case, yes, because of the tone and tenor of the message. And the judge says, well, you can describe that, but it sounds cumulative. I don't need to hear it. I don't need the DVRO relitigated, but you can establish the factual predicate, and I can do that from the transcript. So what I'm seeing right off the bat, this continues throughout the entire hearing. They have audio recordings of Alice and various other things, and they have transcripts of those. And whenever possible, the judge is not allowing the original in. He is just going with a transcript. This is a savvy judge. Okay, he knows that this is all going to end up as public record. And I think my read on it is that in his concern for an attention to the dignity and decorum of the courtroom, he doesn't want it to be a means of settling scores or, a way to kind of pay back embarrassment in kind of thing. He's going to sort of force the high road. So he will consider the facts that are at issue, but he's not going to make a public record of these recordings that are then going to get picked up, because damn well I would play them. Yes, I would. Absolutely, I would. So, I got to give, I guess, a little bit of credit to the judge, even if I don't particularly agree. I can kind of understand the high road that I think he's trying to take with that. So Ioan describes the tenor and the voice of the message as being aggressive and threatening, and it made him very anxious. There was something about the way that she was describing Bianca, and there was she was claiming she didn't want him near his own children, and this was the "you won't be an actor, baby, you'll just be begging for money." We've seen this transcript before in different filings, so there's nothing really new there substantive wise. We could have heard it, but not today, not with the judge's assistance. Same thing with another recording from February 1st of, I believe, 2021. Yes. And so there was an objection to this one right off the bat under California PC 632. So California is a two-party consent state for recording. If you're going to record a private conversation, you have to have the consent of both parties. That's the nature of Janina's objection. She's saying this violates the two-party consent requirement. But they laid a little bit of additional foundation. Why did you record her? I was being threatened by Alice in front of my children, and I needed to use it in a possible domestic violence action. And the judge says, well, I'm inclined to overrule that objection. It's an exception. You are permitted in California to record private conversations in preparation for a domestic violence restraining order. You're allowed to record domestic violence in progress. Janina complains, well, we don't have the context of what was said before. Judge says he just told us the context. He was being threatened in front of his children. And so that's why I think it's permitted. And Janina says, well, okay, I'll withdraw the objection. So she withdraws her objection. Alice kind of smirks. This was a good example of the judge being like, absolutely no nonsense. Like, don't come at me with this bullshit obstructionism. He literally just said what the context was. Like, you're gonna have to be real if you want to bring something like that up. So foundation was set for the exception to the two-party consent requiring and two-party consent recording rule, and so that was allowed. Once again, though, they just allowed in the transcript and not the recording itself. So this one, again, you know, like, I can't see it. I don't know exactly what said. We're asking about his reaction. His reaction, well, he was anxious. He was terrified that she would use my image to create a scandal bigger than Brad and Angie, is I think what he said, and that it would affect his ability to look after his children, and that the threats were in front of his children. So the judge at this point kind of cuts him off, because I think that the judge is not necessarily finding this very helpful. And so he will step in and ask questions himself. And his questions, I gotta say, are real good. Like, he's right to the point, very direct, very simple kinds of questions. Not like good wiggle room around. So he asked a lot of very good, very direct, clarifying questions. And so he asked these questions about, were the children physically present in the room for this conversation? Yes, they were. Was this conversation in person? Yes. Did the children react to this conversation? Well, the one who was younger, she would not have necessarily reacted. The older one was upset. You could see the first thing he said was that she wanted to protect me. And that Janina moved to strike as being speculative, and that was granted. So he asked, you know, what did you see? And he said that you could, she was upset, and how could you tell? Because you could just see it on her face. You could see from the way she was looking at me. So that was the February 1st. Next recording he took on his phone, February 28th of 2021. The context for this one was that he had dropped Elsie and Ella off after the custody visitation. And while in the house, Alice had began loudly berating and threatening and accusing him. So he decided he needed to record it because he feared he would need it for a possible future DV petition. So this one, the recording took place outside of the house in his car as he was leaving. Ooh, we already know from the timeline, this was the great, I'm pretty sure this was the Great Mooning Incident. Maybe not. Maybe that was April. Oh, I have to go back and look. Let me look real quick. Just to myself. February 28th. Yeah, I'm not sure. I don't think it's the mooning one. The mooning one is in April. Yeah. Okay. All right. Clear in my timeline now. So this one, so Alice was not there to greet them when he dropped them off, so he had to take them up into the house. Present, again, clarifying by the judge, himself, one of the children, and Alice. While in the house before the recording started, Alice said that she was going to destroy me. She was going to Amber Heard me. This was the first time I've been waiting. I've been expecting the audibles from Alice. I've been expecting her to react. So far, she has not been super reactive. She has some kind of self-soothing habits that you can see in the courtroom. The one that amuses me the most is that she will soothe herself by turning to look at her reflection in the plexiglass. There's like a plexiglass wall at the clerk's desk. It's probably like left over from COVID. And so it's kind of in front of her and slightly to the right. She will turn and gaze at herself in the plexiglass. So that's a self-soothing thing she does. She likes to rub her lip. She likes to rub her kind of dowager's hump. She does these self-soothing things, but for the most part, she has been very well behaved. But this was the one example where when she said she was going to Amber Heard him, we got the audible. Alice says no, and it wasn't a loud no. It wasn't like she shouted it or anything like that. But I could certainly hear it, and I'm sitting on the other side of the room, so I'm sure the judge could hear it. It wasn't disruptive. It was just a no, and she's shaking her head. No, she doesn't like that testimony. She doesn't like the I'm going to Amber Heard you. And then the if dad is ever creepy or weird with you in any way, please let me know. So he left to de-escalate the situation because she was in a very aggressive state. The children were inside at that point. He started the recording just inside the house while he was going out to the car. So the older daughter was there at the beginning. She came out to him during the recording as he was leaving. She was very upset. First, Alice was still inside, but then she came out and started screaming and yelling at the top of her lungs, using profanities and obscenities. Her demeanor was incredibly aggressive, out of control, and dysregulated. It's like a great description. Yeah, dysregulated. I can absolutely already see what that looks like. You would be able to hear her screaming on the tape. His reaction was stunned and terrified and upset about what was said to the oldest daughter. Janina objected to that as being not in evidence, and that was overruled. So he attempted to calm Ella down, deflected the anger that had come toward her, told her that mom wasn't mad at her, mom is mad at me. Janina objects that assumes facts not in evidence. That is overruled. Like, why are you objecting to that? That's like, I certainly hope she's just projecting misplaced anger that she has at her husband on the daughter, because if she hates her daughter like she hates her husband, well, that's not a good place to be, is it? Not sure that's the point you want to be making in court. Then we had what I referred to as the quote of the day, the question of the day from Joe. Did Alice really say the F word this many times? He's looking at the transcript. Don't know how many times actually it was, because, you know, I haven't been able to see it, but did she actually say the F word this many times? And, you know, I object. That's argumentative. And that one was sustained. It doesn't matter. The judge is going to be able to see for himself. But I just thought that was pretty hilarious. Did Alice really say, yeah, she really did. It's there. Go ahead and listen to the tape. We'd all love to hear it too, but I guess we're not going to be able to. So they allowed the transcript in, except as to statement that I believe Elsie made, because that's hearsay. Again, didn't admit the audio, heard the testimony, so the audio is cumulative. We will not have a screaming Banshee Alice public record in the trial exhibits. Next recording, a voicemail left on his phone by Alice on December 3rd of 2021. It was very disturbing. Children were being used in a coercive way. This one was 11 to 12 months into the divorce. Once again, exhibit, the transcript comes in, the audio does not. So at this point, we have a recess. And so during the recess, I went over to the bailiff and I just asked, is it possible for those of us in the audience to be able to view the exhibits? Don't know the court process. Sometimes we're able to do that. Sometimes we're not. I'm just wondering if we'd be able to have access. So she said, I don't know. I'll ask the judge. And I said, great. So we have our 10-minute morning recess. And when I come back in, the bailiff says, I asked the judge, and the judge said no. And I said, okay, that's fine. I know everyone has their different way of doing things, and managing exhibits is, I have so much sympathy for courts with managing exhibits, because it does get to be a bit of a nightmare, particularly when you're dealing with a situation like this where they've all kind of pre-submitted these binders, and some of it comes in and some of it doesn't, and the clerk's like got to be on top of all that and stuff. So like I get it. But then we come back into the courtroom, and the judge, I guess, felt the need to address my request from the bench. He didn't like address it specifically to me, didn't look at me or anything like that. But he just wanted to make a record. There was an oral request to review exhibits admitted in the case, and I will respond this way, that these are public proceedings and the exhibits are part of the deliberative process, but they are not part of the court file yet. If the attorneys want to share the exhibits that have been admitted, I am not going to, I can't prevent them from doing that. But to request from the court would interfere with the proper administration. We'd have to stop the trial and so forth. I don't think he understood what I was asking. Like, I literally asked the bailiff, like, during the recess, can I just look at the exhibits? But he seemed to think I meant like stop the trial and come look. Like, no, dude, but that's okay. Anyway, there's a process for them to be viewable by written request to the court clerk, which I already know. They have a form, a request to view court exhibits. Why do you think I know about that form? Yeah, I'm aware of that form. So there's a formal process that you can go through. But then he makes it clear that no, I don't mean any disrespect, and I don't take any ire with the request. It just has to proceed through dignified, proper channels. So, like, again with the dignity and the formality of the courtroom. Ask the attorneys, what do they think? They both think that's a perfectly appropriate ruling. So, of course they do. Like, there's a whole thing with public access, which is why, the attorneys don't get to decide, because it's often their interests are not aligned with the interests of the public as a whole. But that's fine. I don't need to give the judge a hard time about that, because I do understand it's not particularly convenient. That said, it isn't easy to follow, when we can't see what the exhibits are. So, but they've got the written form. So the request can be made. Perhaps it shall. And we'll see more about what some of these details were. So after the recess, of course, Ioan is back on the stand. The judge wants to know, first off, what's your time estimate on how much we're doing? Remember, we're deciding the DVR first because it affects financial and other issues, by which he means trying to finalize this custody stipulation. We're using the Ritchie factors. This is when he brings it up. We understand we're doing the factual predicate, but there's still 2 more factors to go. Joe says we'll be done with the factual predicate by lunch. Well, we sort of are. So then we have email communications between Ioan and Alice from May 15th of 2021 through December of 2021. There's like some other email addresses throughout this whole, chain of correspondence that the judge and Janina kind of take issue with. And so I think that these raise issues about hearsay and rule of completeness and stuff like that. So he wants them to sort out specific portions to offer into evidence. So now we start breaking up the exhibits into these pages, and we start admitting just pages of some So Joe asked, which of these emails did you want to bring to the court's attention? And Yo says all of them. Thought that was kind of funny. Like the judge just sort of said, you can't because there's probably some other stuff in there. But now Joe starts going into specific ones and asking, well, like, for example, on this one, there's a page 10. Is there anything offensive about this link that she sent you? She sent a link. Ioan says it's a podcast Alice participated in as part of her Want More campaign. And his manager got calls and inquiries related to the things that Alice was saying. Janina moved to strike that as hearsay, and that request was granted. The manager would have to testify to that. Ioan does have, I think, his agent on the witness list, so they'll get to some of that anyway. When asked if he watched the podcast, no, he didn't. She sent him the link to the podcast and he didn't even watch it. I bet that burned. Another email where the children were being coercively used, and Janina objects to this as being argumentative and assuming facts not in evidence, and that's overruled because the judge is saying it's just his reaction to it. A request to see his children was responded to with forwarded email chains. You know, I don't know what that means because I can't see the messages that they're referring to. Alice was claiming that he wouldn't have a clue how to bring up children. Another email. Again, he's just testifying to his reaction. So he's horrified and frustrated that the agreement between the attorneys for him to pick up Elsie at school had now created an email from Alice that the police would be called if he tried to exercise his custodial visit. So this is what he was referring to when he came back from France. And Alice emails him saying she's contacted the police if he tries to pick his daughter up at school. And that was incredibly upsetting because he wanted to see his daughter and pick her up and be a part of her life. And that was a moment where it just kind of started to land, like what this is all about. He has been prevented. He's been able, the ability to be a part of his daughter's life has been taken away from him. And that's extremely sad and tragic and wrong. I mean, extremely unhealthy for the children, if nothing else, to have a loving father taken away for no particularly good reason, just out of spite. Another email where she is using a racial slur towards Bianca. Janina moves to strike that as misstating the document, and judge says overruled. It does contain a racial reference. I don't know what it is. I don't know what Bianca's race is. Apparently some kind of racial slur about Bianca. Maybe that's bogan. Maybe she called her a bogan. I don't know. I don't think so, because that had to be explained later on. So they move to admit all of these individual pages of the exhibit that they've just talked about. And Janina objects, saying that it's cumulative. And I thought we were moving on. She has this very bitchy, I thought we were moving on. And the judge says, I asked for guidance, and I set out like what we were talking about. What I'm interested in as far as the Ritchie factors, but I am not going to step on counsel's ability to present his case. The judge is gonna let Joe kind of put on what he thinks he needs to put on. Not going to cut him short or anything like that. So that is overruled. Those emails come in. We move on to our Family Wizard communications between December of 2021 and February 2022. Several of those, a threat to use Gloria, the nanny, in court, and that things were not going to end well. She was going to create a false crime that Bianca had perpetrated and try to get her deported. He was afraid that Alice would try to carry out those acts. Moving on, She's perpetuating a false narrative about cheating, and this is becoming upsetting because OFW is supposed to be for peaceful communications about the children. There's a comment about, yes, the kids do find out. The judge says you can't read it if it's not in evidence. So he can only testify about his reaction until it's in evidence. So his reaction is he was upset and saddened that the children were being involved and that things were being shared with the kids. So the judge now interjects. He wants to ask some questions. Was there an order limiting the content of our family wizard messages? And Joe says, he's asking like the parties for clarification on this. And Joe says, no, but I wasn't involved. And Janina says there's no language regarding the OFW because there was no custody order in place. The parties had just voluntarily launched it. So there's kind of a discussion back and forth about this because neither of these people were the attorneys at the time. And I'm fairly sure that the Our Family Wizard said they're, well, I guess that was later on, now that I think about it. That was after the DVRO was entered, that they would use Our Family Wizard for peaceful communications about the children. But the order wasn't in place yet at this point. This was the predicate for the order. So no language about what you can and can't say on Our Family Wizard. There was a threat of that, you know, whatever she wants him to do something, and if he doesn't do it, then that will leave his daughter without a father. Just, you know, more of the threats that we know that she issues. There's a whole bunch of objections to the Our Family Wizard messages based on what Janina is calling rule of continuity. The judge is saying so first off, there's a missing page, and so there's an issue of rule of completeness. Joe says under the rule of completeness, that should just mean that she has the ability to add in any kind of necessary context. The rule of completeness is it's an objection to entering a portion of a document if more of it is needed to fairly put it in context. And so Janina is basically arguing, you know, this is the having it both ways, right? If you put everything into evidence, then there's a whole bunch here that's like not relevant and it's superfluous and, you know, needs to be stricken. But if you don't put everything in, then you don't have context and it's, you know, not sufficiently complete. So it's like they're going to object no matter what you do. But so on this one, she's just arguing like these are segments, and so you don't see like who's responding to what, and they're taken out of context. Joe is saying they have the ability to add it in. We chose these as standalone so that we would minimize the court time. They don't want to put in 121, you know, total messages, and they have the right to add it in. Janina says the doctrine of continuity says that if there is a response, we have to know what it's responding to. Not familiar with this rule. Maybe this is a California thing. Joe says we don't have any problem reserving on this exhibit if she wants to add something. And the judge says, well, the testimony is about his reaction to this stuff, not the content itself. So he's not going to admit the all but one of the Our Family Wizard messages at this time. The one that he let in was the one where she was going to create a false crime that Bianca had perpetrated and then that she could be deported. So that one came into evidence, but the rest did not. Now, I didn't particularly like or agree with the judge's reasoning on this because he's saying that, you know, he's essentially saying it's only relevant for Ioan's reaction. But it's really not. The factual predicate is not just your reaction to it, it's the reasonableness of your reaction to it. So it has a subjective part to it, yes, but it also has an objective component. And you have to know what it is he's reacting to be able to evaluate, is his reaction reasonable or not? So I don't really buy I don't really buy this this argument that because the testimony is just about his reaction, therefore the underlying substance doesn't need to come in. It does need to come in to show his reaction was reasonable. But maybe it doesn't matter. I don't know. As long as they don't need a record for appeal, I guess it doesn't matter. We moved on then to social media postings that Alice made between November of 2021 and January of 2022. So we know from the time frame, these are going to be heavily focused on Bianca. This is when she was on a total Bianca rampage and they were cheating and so on and so forth. So Yo testified that he viewed these on or about the times they were posted. He took screenshots of them. And what would happen is that he would be notified of them and he would find them online and then take screenshots to prepare the exhibit. He recognizes her Instagram and Twitter handles, and the contents of the documents are Alice's communications. Through these posts, she was putting untruths into the public sphere. She was denigrating him and Bianca. She was threatening him. Her creations would be picked up by her followers as if they were true. The judge asks him, did you introduce these in your domestic violence petition? And Ioan said some of them. And he asks, what is Alice saying about you in these posts? And Ioan says that I am an abuser, a child abuser, a pedophile, and a drug addict. Yeah, I remember this Alice. I remember this Alice stage. Yeah, she was like, there was nothing she wasn't going to say. Says the worst things you can say about people. So in this one, she describes him as being out of his mind on sex and drugs, and that made him feel sad and frustrated and helpless. One that the press picked up on, where he viewed articles about himself in the Sun and the Daily Mail where they portrayed him as a drug addict. Don't know what the tweet was, but he says it was not accurate. He didn't do what she said. He had no such conversation with her. He was worried about the publicity again. Like, so much of this was quite repetitive just because of kind of how they chose to present this. It wasn't good storytelling, guys. Like, that's really all I can tell you. It gets a little frustrating to go through the notes sometimes when it's like, but where's the story? Like, no, there really wasn't a story here. There was a lot of exhibits and a lot of repetition of feelings, and not a whole lot of why does this matter and what does this mean? One where she called him a pedophile, felt that this was now the end. Completely helpless, had incredible amounts of backlash. How do you respond to people about something like this? It's an embarrassment. It's an unseemly conversation to have. It's the worst possible thing you can be called. Other things she addressed in her posts included his career, his relationship with Bianca, and his relationship with the kids. An example of an attack on his career. Don't know what the tweet said, but it irritated him and annoyed him, I guess, frustrated him because he had been more than generous in his support of the children and Alice. So she would say something, I guess, about him being a failed actor or something. I don't know. One where she doxed Bianca's place of work and her manager. I remember this one. This is where she tagged Bianca's agent and was like, do you approve of home wreckers or some shit like that? Woman fucking another man, stealing him away from his family. Do you approve of that kind of thing? Trying to get a council mob on Bianca with her agent. Judge wants some more clarifying questions. In June of 2021, the relationship began, yes. In September of 2021, it became physical. When did Bianca come? Did Bianca come to live with you at some point? That was in November of 2021. Her living with him wasn't part of the original petition. So the judge wants to know, why do you want her protected? And Ioan said, well, she's my wife now. You know, she still lives with me. We have a daughter now. And the judge says, well, she is not part of this order. So daughter is not part of the order. Just going to be Ioan and Bianca. A post where she's denigrating Bianca. The children are being used. He's now starting to feel exhausted along with the anxiety of all of this. Something that was devastating for him as a father to have this kind of false public narrative out there because it's not true. One where Alice posted texts between himself and Ella. He was stunned and flabbergasted and helpless because those things should not be posted, and this was on Instagram. Janina objected to this one on completeness grounds. She says it appears he's responding to something, and also hearsay. The judge says basically he doesn't need this information to get the factual predicate in the case. He thinks it's cumulative. Several are also hearsay, and he heard the testimony. So he's also not satisfied that these posts were admitted in the underlying hearing. Joe says that they're not being offered for the truth of what's being said, which has been like, this is what I've been screaming in my head anytime there's been a hearsay objection coming up to like Instagram posts or whatever. They're not being offered for the truth of the matter asserted. They're not being offered for the truth of the matter. Of course they're not. The whole point is that they're false. It's not offered for the truth of the matter asserted. But that doesn't seem to matter. The judge is saying it's cumulative, and he doesn't think it's necessary, so he is not allowing those in at this time. So we had our lunch break, and the judge wanted to know at this point, what's going on? Where are we at? And Joe says, well, we are moving now into the next part of the violations of the restraining order. So we knew we would be coming back after lunch to that. So I had a nice poke bowl for lunch. It was great. It's very hot in LA. I mean, I know it's certainly not by LA standards, but it was like, I don't know, 76, 77 today downtown. And downtown LA has the like worst restaurant scene of any major city that I know. I don't hate LA at all. Like, it's not New York. Okay. It's not a city like New York is a city. I actually like LA a lot. It's got like its own kind of very scuzzy charm. But I gotta say, the downtown lack of restaurant scene is like really, really bad. There's nowhere to go. You gotta like walk for blocks, and downtown is fairly hilly. So like when you're in the suit and stuff, it's not really ideal. But I went to Grand Central Market, had a nice poke bowl. That was pretty all right. When we got back after lunch, only thing I really noticed right off the bat was Neil was late getting in. Neil Blinko from the Daily Mail. He had to come up and introduce himself to me again. I'm like, yeah, we met, and we met before. You don't remember when your rag wrote an article about me because of that lunatic there? I didn't say that, but yeah, anyway. So Neil was late coming back after lunch. I'm like, oh, I wonder if he's coming back, but he did. He was like 15 minutes late or so. So we continued now with post DVRO or post order violations. So the first things were after just the temporary order was issued, not the permanent order, but the temporary order was issued in February. And so first, she claimed falsely that he was involved with high-class sex workers, which was not true. And there was an article that was created about that. Janina wanted to strike that as non-responsive, and that was overruled. He was concerned about his career due to posts like this, and the fact that even though there was a TRO in place, she was still posting things like this. And even a TRO wouldn't prevent her from posting things like this. So this is a text between Ella and him that she posted on her Instagram. He felt helplessness and anger that his texts with his daughter were being posted publicly. Also some Twitter posts and Instagram posts where she's saying, fuck it, I'm breaking the TRO. People need to know. She said over the course of these several pages, fuck the TRO 4 different times. She said, fuck the DVRO, the permanent one time in a different message, different post. At this point, he was feeling helpless and unprotected, and he was devastated by the defiance of the TRO. So it's becoming very clear that rules aren't going to matter. Restrictions aren't going to matter. She's not going to respect them anyway. So yeah, that would make a person feel pretty helpless, I would think. Yeah, more diminishing the TRO. Some concern about comments, and Janina's objecting. It got hearsay on it and comments. So she doesn't want page 1 in. Page 1, Joe's like, page 1 is the kid's text. It's her reposting the kid's text. And the judge is like, yeah, and that's in the face of the TRO. That's prohibited. Posting what's prohibited. That's a violation. So pretty relevant. Overruled. Yeah, not going to get out of the violation of the TRO by calling it hearsay. Posted the child's message with the father on social media. Like, who does that? Who does that? They complained about part of other pages, and basically all of it came in except for like a part of one page. So then we looked at his request to renew the DVRO. So that was filed earlier last year. That was filed like in May, I think, of last year. We did learn, so Janina objected just because she wanted to make objections to certain portions of his declaration, but that because he asserted them on information and belief, so he had, according to her, no personal knowledge. So, but she said as long as the court won't consider things in the declaration that are based on information and belief, she's fine with it coming in. She also wanted to strike part of the DVR application, which was the declaration of Linda Blank. She said, I am prepared to cross today, but understand she's no longer going to be a witness. So Lynn Blank was the former, she ran like a Facebook fan club for Ioan originally, but ended up being kind of, as she described it, groomed by Alice, love bombed and approached and kind of solicited into being on Team Alice. She herself ultimately engaged in some pretty horrendous bullying type behavior towards Ioan and Bianca on social media to help Alice, but ultimately they had a falling out, and Lynn saw the error of her ways and kind of realized, I think, what game Alice had been playing with her. So I was looking forward to her testimony and seeing what she had to say, because in her declaration, she described kind of how Alice was planning. She was planning to do what she did. She was coordinating this kind of social media campaign against him. She was saying how she was going to drag out the litigation and stuff like that. So if she is not going to be a witness, that's a little bit disappointing. Don't know why. No reason for that given, but don't love it as a piece of news. So the judge is saying the court forms are allowed to be admitted just under a kind of basic rule of evidence, but the DVRO renewal form itself is 12 pages, and Ioan's document when he submitted the renewal request is 153, so it's not the same thing. So the first 12 pages are the exact, are the actual form, can come in. The declaration is part of the request, Joe says, and so it's a separate filing, so that part of it can come in as well. But Lynn's declaration does not come in. And then the extensions of the restraining order are admitted as well. Ioan says that yes, he is alleging violations of the permanent DVRO as well. He is alleging 3 times that she violated the stay away order. Those were in November 2022 at the 3rd Street Elementary School, January 2023 at Beverly Boulevard, and September 2024, a hearing here in the courtroom, in the courthouse in Department 6. She violated the no contact provision of the order, both directly and indirectly. 2 emails that she sent in December of 2022, dozens of Our Family Wizards, and then social media posts tagging me, as well as indirect contact by way of emails that she sent to his mother. And those emails contained contents such that they would naturally make their way back to him, and his mom did in fact forward it to him at the time. So that was kind of like the overview of the violations that he was alleging. Now, during the time when they're talking about her violations of the restraining order, Alice is now, after lunch, she's sitting with her arms crossed and she's just looking up at the ceiling. Well, he's describing these, looking up at the ceiling. Alice is putting on her unbothered. She's really trying to, I think, put on her unbothered state. There's been a couple times where something seems to have alarmed her, and she has a very haughty kind of just affect, and so something will bother her and she will lift her chin way up in the air and kind of look down on everything. So she does that a couple times. But yeah, this point she's doing the arms crossed and kind of staring up at the ceiling. Just above, you know, what a waste of time hearing all this about her violations. So we get to the additional orders, the write-ons, the add-ons that the judge put at the end of the DVRO. The DVRO has like standard, you know, stay away, don't stalk, don't come within X distance, don't contact, etc. But then it also has a place for the judge to be able to kind of add in whatever sort of restrictions he thinks is necessary. And so the judge had added in specific restrictions about her social media content. And so asked if she had violated those parts of the order. Ioan said there were violations in 2022, 2023, 2024, and 2025. So starting with the stay away order, we went through the incidents one by one. The first one was the 3rd Street Elementary School on November 17th. He was attending a parent-teacher conference for his younger daughter, scheduled for 3:30 with the teacher, 3rd grade teacher. Alice was not scheduled to have a conference that day. Janina objects to lack of personal knowledge. That objection is overruled. So Joe asks him, well, how do you know? And Ioan says, well, I know because I entered on the public sign-up sheet that was available online. I took the last slot that was available for that day, and Alice was not on the list. So when it began, I was there for about 10 minutes. And when Alice came into the room 32, where the conference was taking place, she was immediately asked to leave by the teacher. I was unable to continue the conference. I told the teacher I would get back in touch, but I needed to leave. I started recording video on my phone of my exit from the building because Alice was in the way of my exit and there was no other way out of the room. Alice was there at the bottom of the ramp, and I videoed it on my phone because I have a restraining order, and she had barged in, and I had a right to record the violation of the restraining order. So the video is admitted into evidence. There's also a prepared transcript of what he is saying. He and the teacher are saying to each other. And then there's also communications outside with the child. They also introduced, we've seen the screenshot of Alice. Alice looking like, you know, like one of the... She reminds me of like the California Raisin. Remember the California Raisin ad? She's like, she's standing at the end of the ramp, and the smug look on her face, and her legs crossed, just pleased as pie that she's got him trapped there, and she's kind of shaped, you know, like a grape on legs. Screenshot that we've already seen that gets admitted into evidence. But in this instance, we are going to see the video. So we do see the video. There's an argument about the transcription because Janina thinks his transcription is not accurate. So they've transcribed it themselves. The judge just says, I'll take both and give each of them the weight that I think they warrant. So the judge wanted to ask some few questions again. He very politely, may I ask a question of the plaintiff? The petitioner, yes. So before the encounter with Alice on November the 17th, did you verify she was not supposed to be there? Ioan says, no, I just verified by looking at the sign-up sheet. So like he didn't do anything with the school to confirm that he wasn't supposed to be there, that Alice wasn't supposed to be there. He did not later learn that she claimed to have an appointment. And then orientation wise, the ramp that he is referring to is behind him when he is taking the picture. Did Alice move when you came out? No, she did not. She stayed where she was, and she did not say anything to him. So we do watch this video. It's 52 seconds long. It's not particularly dramatic. The judge, before we watch it, wants to know if the child is depicted on camera, and it's because, you know, there is a brief exchange between them, and Ioan says, I believe you may see a glimpse of her. Judge says this says that the older child was also present, and Ioan clarifies that they both were present. So we watch the video, and it's basically, you see the inside of the school, like he turns the phone on and it's just like pointed at the ground or whatever. And he's on his way out, and you hear him, he's apologizing to the teacher. You know, I'm sorry. She's showing him out. So they walk out the door, and you look right, and you look down this ramp, and there's Alice down there at the end, and you look left, and it's like this horseshoe in the building. So you can see, like, yes, there's no way out. This is the way out the door. You've got to go down there. You can't go left because it's a horseshoe building. Like, you just get back to the building. So he's got to walk past Alice, and the teacher is saying there's no other way out. So he just like books it right on past her. No acknowledgement. Kids are down there, see him like kind of briefly interacting, saying something to Elsie. I couldn't pick up all of what he was saying other than I love you, baby. And then they, you know, the video ends, and that's that. So it's not the most dramatic thing, but he does just book it right past her as fast as he possibly can, and no acknowledgement whatsoever. They introduce, or they offer the sign-up sheet for the parent-teacher conference, the one that he had relied on for, you know, Alice not being there. At this point, he said he was stunned to the point where he was frozen with anxiety and fear because he had organized and made sure that she wasn't on the list that day. And here she was barging into the conference. He was very upset about her being in the egress. She's supposed to stay away for 100 yards, and yet she chose to put herself in the way of my exit. So This then, the sign-up sheet, they move to admit it. It's objected to on hearsay grounds. That is sustained. Joe again says, I'm offering it for a non-hearsay purpose. And the judge says he already testified to it. It's cumulative. I guess corroboration is cumulative. I'm not sure. Maybe only on redirect does he want this stuff. You know, only if Ioan gets challenged on it. Maybe that's a better way to do it anyway. Just let him tell the story, let them try to pick it apart, and then come in and substantiate it with your receipts. I don't know. The next violation was on Beverly Boulevard on January 16th of 2023. It was about 3 p.m. He was walking home with Bianca and their dog Bear. They had picked him up from the groomers. They were on the south side of the street. The incident began between La Jolla Street and Harper Street, and they ended up at Beverly and Sweetser. So they were heading west when Alice drove by. She was on the same side to make a left-hand turn onto La Jolla. Janina objects to this as lack of foundation. So the judge asks, how do you know? And Ioan says, because she turned left on La Jolla. That would be a pretty good basis of knowledge. She was in her black Toyota Prius. He saw her then come out of the other side of Beverly Boulevard. So he believed she made a U-turn on a blind street to be able to come out there. And she made a left on Flores and did a U-turn, then a right to come back east to where Bianca, Bear, and I were walking. So she drove past 3 times total. On the 3rd time, she beeped her horn and waved and gave us the finger. Judge clarifies, by that, do you mean the middle finger? Yes. Good record, Judge. Yes, he meant the middle finger. The first time she went by, she was on the right side. Judge wants to know how far away she was. So the first time she was on the right side, about 30 meters away. When she was honking and giving the finger, she was about 5 meters away. There is a video recording of this incident that Bianca filmed on her phone. He was frozen, couldn't believe that she would come back around deliberately to taunt us that way. Asked, did it upset you? Janina objected to that as leading. That was overruled. And he said, yes, I could not believe that with everything in place, she chose to change direction to come back around to taunt us. This incident they reported to police. So there is a diagram, a sketch that he made at the request of police that depicted where each of them were and went. The journey Alice took on her car and where Bianca and I are going. He received a notice that the incident was proceeding to a hearing. His sketch is admitted, but the notice of hearing is objected to as hearsay, and that is sustained. So Ioan testifies that he attended the hearing. It was a telephonic hearing, and it was reported that to him that it was a violation, but that there would not be a penalty. They would keep the case open for a year, and if there was other violations, then they would pursue a penalty. Janina moved to strike that, what he was told, as hearsay, and that was sustained. So the next violation was in Department 6 in September of 2024 at about 9:30 a.m. He was there for an 8:30 hearing. Alice was also there. He was sitting in the gallery on the left-hand side of the courtroom, and the counsel, the attorneys, had been invited into the chambers. When Alice got up from the right-hand side, came into the space in between, you meant the aisle, the middle aisle, got in my face and started taking pictures. And the judge interjects at this point, inside the courtroom? Yeah, Judge. Yeah, man, you missed out. You missed out, indeed, right inside the courtroom. He was astonished, I think, to hear that. He thought he had misheard. Inside the courtroom? Yes, yes, Judge. Yes, exactly. Inside the courtroom. In the middle aisle with her phone, she was within about a meter of him. She stood right in front of him. So the bailiff immediately got up out of his chair, told her to delete the photos, and escorted her out. Yes, indeed he did. Ioan reports that he felt frozen with fear and helpless, that even in court, she would come so close in my face with an order to stay away. Next, we have Instagram posts made by Alice that referenced her taking the photos of him at court. There was an admission of the bailiff where he said, now this was an interesting one. This is where it got a little awkward, because her post was, I tried to get a picture of her, but the bailiff made me delete it. So the judge asked, was she taking a picture of someone else or you? And Ioan said, I believe she was taking a photo of me. I don't think he's wrong. I think she was trying to get both of us in the photo, honestly. But she did make statements about both. And so that came out, that there was an interaction with someone else in the courtroom. She was trying to take a picture of the stalker. The stalker, that was me. That was me. Remember, I was the stalker because I went to court. She was trying to take a picture of the stalker to give to my lawyer. And so those come into evidence. We have emails from Alice. He was CC'd in, first one, December of 2022. And then our family wizard in 2022 and 2023, multiple violations of the order. So the judge wants to interject first about the emails. What's the subject of them? And Ioan says it's an insurance agent looking for payment. And the judge wants to clarify, is this after the dissolution was filed? Ioan says yes, and after the DVRO was filed. And the judge asks if the lawyers were not copied on the email. And Ioan confirms, no, they were not. The lawyers were not copied on the email about payment from the insurance agent. Then the OFW messages. These were from Alice after the permanent restraining order was granted through June of 2023. His understanding was that she had a right to communicate regarding the children. She could have brief and peaceful contact about them. And so this particular exhibit, they have included every single our family wizard with Alice for purposes of context. So not everything is alleged to be a violation, and they used it as an example, a communication about one of the children needing to go to the doctor, and you're not saying that's a problem. No, that's okay, that's fine. So turning to then ones that were not fine, one was on April 18th of 2023. Don't know what it said, but it made him upset that the message wasn't in keeping with the order for things to just be about the children, and he felt exhausted because even with the order, it can't be a simple, peaceful back and forth about the children. It just can't. She's got to bring other stuff into it. We're looking at more messages. So now at this point, Alice is sitting like this. She's sitting like this now. And I can tell because I'm sitting over on the left side of the courtroom, and I can see her skirt, her knee, like poking out of the chair, like out of the top of the chair. So I can see she's sitting with her foot. She's like pulled her foot up on the chair and like sitting back, and she's got her hand on her hair, and she's like playing with her hair. Very, very casual courtroom presence. Foot on the chair while you're wearing a skirt. More messages, and he was just feeling growing sense of frustration and anxiety over the unrelenting nature of the messages not being simple, precise communications about the kids. A lot of the messages, good cause for upset in them, and he's beginning to feel that there is nothing that can be done to stop the flow of these things that have nothing to do with the children. We have our afternoon break at this point for about 10 minutes. And then when we come back in, we're going to hear from Bianca. So we're taking Bianca out of order. Meaning, Ioan hasn't finished his direct, let alone been cross-examined. Normally you do your direct and your cross, then you go to the next witness. But they're not doing that. They're taking her out of order. It's not entirely clear to me why. But so Bianca is called after the afternoon recess. First thing I notice, Alice won't look at her. Alice won't even look at her. Alice is a big coward, as I've mentioned before. When I ran into her in court the first time, you know, she's only brave behind a keyboard. So this morning when we got there, I was sitting pretty much across from her and her lawyer. And I'm not like staring at her or anything. I'm mostly just like minding my own business, but I'll look and see what's going on from time to time. And there's like one brief moment where she's, trying to pretend she's looking anywhere but me, but then she looks at me, but then she's, got to look away. Like she's absolutely terrified to make eye contact with anybody who she doesn't already have cowed and terrified of her. So she would not look at Bianca at all. Bianca, okay, for somebody who had a baby, 3 months ago, she looks amazing. Like whatever happens to your hair in pregnancy or like the prenatal vitamins or whatever, her hair is glorious. It's like, it's glossy. The bangs are like really working right now. They're just like this light. Bianca looked fabulous and just, I don't know how anybody has a baby and like gets your figure back that fast, but she looks great. So Bianca is a little bit more animated on the stand than Ioan is. She's a little bit more interactive. Ioan had kind of already gotten into the swing of things with like, here's the exhibits and here's how it works. And you turn to this page and sometimes the judge will ask you questions and stuff like that. This is all kind of new to Bianca. So she was a little bit like having to adjust on the fly. And she did, in my view, quite well with that. So they started with the DVRO, which of course she is aware of since the time that it was issued. She does have personal knowledge of alleged violations. The Beverly Boulevard violation on January 2023, she was there for, walking back from the dog groomers on Beverly Boulevard. They had just passed La Jolla. Yo froze and said Alice had just driven past. She didn't think much about it because Alice lives on La Jolla. But then as they got to Harper, she was there again and she did an aggressive U-turn on Flores. And so at that point, they both started getting nervous. They stopped at the light on Sweetser, and so she started videotaping at that point, and Alice started beeping, gesturing, giving a middle finger, and she recorded it on her phone because it was very clear to her that she was clear to them that she was violating the order. There is a transcript for this one as well. There's not really a whole lot of audio of it, but the video accurately depicts it and it is inserted. We have yet again a like argument over the transcript. Janina wants her own transcript in, so the judge is like, fine, we'll just take both transcripts. I will give them the weight that they deserve. So we watch the video and you don't really see much. It starts with you're looking down at Bear on the sidewalk, and Bear is like the cutest little dog. He's dancing, jumping up on him. Hi, he's so happy. And Bianca is talking to Bear, and then you hear the beep beep, and then the phone comes up, and you see the black Prius drive by, and you can't really see inside. I mean, at least we couldn't from watching it on the screen in the one time in court. So that was basically what it showed. They asked if she saw Alice gesticulate and could she demonstrate it? And Bianca's stunned and she turns to the judge and says, can I? And the judge says, or you can describe it. And so Bianca says she raised her hand and lifted her middle finger, keeping this all very, very formal. She did that, Judge. She described Ioan as kind of shell-shocked because he is still in a very traumatized state over all of this. Bianca reacted with nervous laughter and could not stop talking. Other violations of the restraining order that she alleges included the social media harassment and abuse, the stay away order. So then we go back to Alice's social media postings from 2021 to 2022. These were the original ones. So Bianca is testifying that she sees these when they are posted. The first one is November the 8th. And Alice was falsely stating that I was Ioan's mistress. I was forcing him to marry me ASAP and was perpetuating very false stories about me. Bianca says I was completely and totally devastated by what she was doing. And Alice made some kind of a face when she said this, just like a pull face, pull face, like skeptical, completely and totally devastated. Like if you were reading the things that Alice was saying about Bianca online relentlessly for months in this time frame, yeah, I can see why somebody would feel pretty bad about and it wasn't just Alice was the problem. It's how the online mob gets. Alice had followers back then. I think she might still have like 2, but not a whole lot of the flying monkey crew still around doing her busy work. This one again, it's challenging because they're asking her about her reaction, but we don't know what it is. And Bianca keeps trying to tell us what it is, but then that gets objected to as you can't read it because it's not in evidence yet. So this next one, not really sure what it was, but she reacted to it because it was a very cruel, she described it as the most cruel introduction. Oh, I know what this is. This was the October of 2011, October 27th of 2011. She knew the date right off the bat. This was the one when they got the phone call, the Bianca Wallace phone call, and they had to do their Instagram reveal. And then Alice posted this one. So this was the most cruel introduction to the public eye anyone can go through. It said that Yo had been in a relationship with me for 3 years behind his family's back. And I burst into tears. I couldn't believe what she was doing. Next one, Alice's words directed to me. This was the post about the stealer of husbands. Remember that one? Stealer of husbands, ruiner of lives. You make my children cry. So in this one, she was making claims that Bianca used fake accounts, again with the projecting. Like, why do you even think of this stuff if it's not something that you do frequently? Like, who goes around accusing everybody of fake accounts? Like, it wouldn't even cross my mind because I don't do that. So would not even occur to me to accuse other people of doing that. But so she's accusing Bianca of making fake accounts and implying that Bianca would be upset if she posted a nice picture of herself. Got to run around and make fake accounts to talk shit on nice photos of you because that's what Alice does. So at this point, the posting harassment, it was becoming unrelenting, and it was more stressful post by post. Next one was Alice publicly declared that I pose naked and sleep with whoever and that she needed an STD test. Clarified they began dating in September 2021. This one, she says, made her absolutely sick to my stomach. Ioan was so completely traumatized by what was going on, he would just stutter and he wouldn't know what to say and he couldn't get out of bed. Next one, she's being called a hoe and she's not going to take anything lying down or with dignity. Yeah, Alice not being all about that dignity when the court has no less than like 4 times been like, dignity of the courtroom is really important here. Probably not going to be a lot of affinity there. The one about Alice contacting her former management, interfering with her career, trying to get her fired. Bianca felt this one was going far above and beyond. Yo at this point was apologetic, although Bianca says he should not have been because it was not his fault. He felt it was his fault. I was abused by Alice, but it was not. Alice asking her brother to find shit out about me publicly. Tweet that made her scared. The one that she had the biggest reaction to was Alice publicly outing her MS diagnosis. After this one, she could not get out of bed for a couple of days. It was very tough to come to terms with. Alice tweeted about trying to get information about me, talking about my former marriage, making false claims about me breaking up marriages. Bianca clarifies that she prepared these exhibits with screenshots that she made. So they admitted the posts now that were Alice's posts, not like replies and things like that. So just Alice's posts. And so now we can talk about, now that they're in evidence, we can go back to the same things we just talked about her reaction to and talk about what the actual words were. So the first one was Alice saying that Yo lied to his little girls and I was a mistress and he was trying to marry ASAP. Next one was the 3-year affair narrative. Next one, the manifested a husband away, the stealer of husbands, the ruiner of lives. The ruiner of the life I worked so hard to achieve, the person who makes my kids cry. That message. Next one, stating I had posed publicly and have casual sex with whoever. And that one is particularly disturbing, suggesting an STD test is needed because of me is outrageous. Next one, calling me a hoe, not going to go down dignified. Publicly tagging her agent, calling her someone fucking a man and stealing him away from his family in that post. Another one calling her a hoe. That was a common trope of Alice's. Discussing her diagnosis. One where Alice calls her a bogan, and so she has to explain to the judge the bogan is an Australian term. It means like a redneck. It means somebody's lower class. And this is where she's trying to find out about her ex-husband. She falsely stated I got married in 2016 and that at least one other woman had a family broken up by me, and that is neither of those are true. Another one stating horrible false claims about me, and then one that was particularly cruel. Don't know what it said. One specifically where what Alice was saying was to such an extreme level. She says she threw up and think I lost my ability to walk at this point. This one floored my health and pushed me over the edge. And I remember Bianca talking about being basically like sent into an MS flare during this time frame because of this relentless online abuse that she was receiving from Alice and all of Alice's flying monkeys. One where Alice, now at this point, Alice is looking at the plexiglass and she's looking down the nose at herself. And I thought that's one for Freud. That's one for Freud. She's got her chin up and she's doing the gazing at herself in the plexiglass thing, but she's like looking down her own nose at herself. I'm like, if that doesn't symbolize like something that you should really reflect on, then I'm not sure I know. I'm not sure I know what does. Next one was Alice sharing a photo of Bianca with her sister, calling her horrible names. This was a photo. The judge wanted to know the details about the photo. So it was taken in February 2019 at her ex-husband's 30th birthday party of B and her sister, and Alice posted it in late 2021. One where Alice threatened her immigration status. At this point in the afternoon is where Alice is starting to do the rubbing her lip, kind of self-calming, self-soothing thing, and then doing the like the dowager's hump. She's like, I mean, and it's quite pronounced. I mean, it is quite pronounced. And she kind of like rubs it. Whatever soothes you and keeps you behaving in court, I guess. At this point, Bianca was worried when the immigration stuff came up because she felt it was becoming obvious that she probably was going to interfere. One where she falsely stated, I wrecked her fucking family. I had done it before. No good person would push a man to leave his wife and kids. One where Alice had been attacking her looks like relentlessly, and she was saying it was okay because I had been like just salivating, waiting for her, to find out that I was in the wings. Alice is so jealous of other women, and she projects that onto everybody else. Everything is a projection, as it so often is with certain personality types like this. She's so jealous of other women, and so projecting all of this onto Bianca, because that is the kind of thing that Alice would do. Alice would love to go steal somebody's man just to be able to one up some other woman. Like, that's who she is. Like, she wouldn't even care about the dude. She just wants to hurt the woman. Like, feminists, aren't they great? The ones who shout at the loudest. Yeah, never seem to be the ones that live it. So that concluded our day. That was the end of what we had for today. So Bianca is going to come back tomorrow morning. She's going to start first thing at 10 a.m. So I really don't know why they pulled. I don't know why they pulled her out of order. My sense is that Joe is maybe not the best at estimating the time that it takes for trial. I mean, Ioan has already been on the stand. He was on the stand from like 9:30 to noon, 2.5 hours, and then 1:30 to about 3. So 4 hours. 4 hours he's already been on the stand, and like hardly, maybe they're almost done. I don't know. Maybe they're almost done with direct. But he left it because the judge finishes at 4:15 in the afternoon. So an hour 15 to get Bianca in and out with everything. Like, that was never going to happen. So I don't know why we took her out of order. I really don't. But we'll finish up with her tomorrow, and then she'll get crossed. I presume that's going to happen right away. And then we'll get back to Ioan, whatever direct he's got left, and then onto his cross. We did hear that they are still expecting the police officers to testify, and who else? Not Lynn, not Tracy, I believe, but there were some others. I think the agent perhaps. Anyway, I don't remember the details, but I think some of that has kind of been coordinated already, at least as far as the police officers and stuff. So don't expect it to happen tomorrow, but not entirely sure what the day is going to hold. I expect it to just be, finishing Ioan and Bianca, and then getting through cross-examination. So it's going to be interesting to see the strategy they take. My money is on minimizing. I think they're going to try to minimize the violations and the abuse and so forth. A lot of people might think to themselves that it would make sense to try to, like, Alice has tried to present herself as reformed. She's tried to suggest that, this was just a phase I went through because I was so upset when my marriage first broke down, but I'm over it now. I've healed from my traumas, I think how she put it in her trial brief. And so you think you would want to present yourself as somebody who has moved on. That would include things like, I've taken accountability for it, and I regret it, and I recognize the harm that it inflicted, and I apologize for that. Like, these are basic components of rehabilitation of a relationship, right? Restoring after a breach. You have to acknowledge, you have to validate, you have to give assurance that there's not going to be future violations. These are what good faith, well-intentioned, reasonable people do when they've made a mistake that they need to move on from. Don't have high hopes that that's going to be the approach that we see from Alice. No, don't think that's going to be the approach. I think it's going to be more aggressive. I think it's going to be more attacking. I think it's going to be just more of the same, more accusing Ioan of the stuff that Alice does, blaming him for, whatever they can point to as things that they think he did wrong. You didn't see the kids enough. You didn't call the kids, and just whatever. They create this. Alice created this terrible situation, and then blames him for having to react to it. Very classic abuser move. And I think the main thing is just they're going to try to diminish it. Just that's kind of been the hint of what's come out, I think, through the trial brief and stuff like that, where, for example, Alice suggested at one point that one of the detectives told her that he was tired of dealing with Bianca's reports about violations of the DVRO, and he had real crimes to deal with, something like that, real criminals. Of course, I don't believe for a second that detective said anything like that. But it does kind of go to this approach of minimizing. These are no big deal. She's making a big deal out of nothing. They're really just trying to set me up so she doesn't have to pay maintenance. Does that sound like somebody who's at risk of reoffending? Given that the judge has pretty much already said on the record, this is a violation. Like you've already violated at least once, and you said several times, fuck the order. And do you think this is really going to show the kind of changed circumstances under that Ritchie factor that might get you out of problems here in terms of California law limiting not just custody but also support, also maintenance being paid to an abuser? Not a favorable legal situation for Alice to be in. So, the smart thing to do would be to fall on your sword and take the accountability, but she's allergic to it. She just can't do it. She's got to keep blaming him. Everything is his fault. He deserved it. It's the narcissist prayer, I didn't do it. If I did, I don't even remember exactly how it all goes, but you guys know it. If I feel like with Alice, it's like, I didn't do it because I didn't do it. You can't prove I did it. If I did do it, you deserved it. Whatever. She's never at fault. And it's just, I've said so many times on this channel, there is nobody that is in denial like an abuser. The one exception are the people, the certain kind of child predator types of criminals. Those are the worst when it comes to denial. But the abusers are a very close second, breathing right down their neck. Denial is just, it's like almost characteristic of being an abuser. Because they just cannot accept any fault and they cannot accept any responsibility. And that's it's so tightly connected with this need to control the other person, right? Everything needs to be this other person's fault. And so the other person has to, always behave this way or not piss me off or whatever. They can't take responsibility for their own reactions and feelings and stuff like that. So they take it out on their victim. It's all been so crystal clear to me for so many years since I started looking at this case way back in the early post Johnny Depp trial days, when I first heard, oh, she threatened to Amber Heard him. And then, yeah, looked at that DVRO application and all of her nasty text messages and all of her social media and all that stuff, all the awful things that she was doing. And yeah, I can see the resemblance for sure. So the pattern, when you have seen it before, it's really not hard to recognize. I gotta wonder how much this court has seen that. I don't know. He's a family court judge. I, of course, see a lot of it in family court. I saw a lot of it in child dependency court, kids in foster care and stuff like that. See a lot of dysfunction and in the patterns in that context. Judge is a family judge, so I got to assume, he's familiar with it. He's seen it before. This isn't his first rodeo. But at the same time, the approach of the family court is so different than the criminal court. The family court is really trying to preserve and fix things as much as possible and sort of minimize conflict, minimize harm. Criminal court, of course, is not like that at all. It's much more about, vengeance and, in a sense, punishing people, retribution for wrongdoing. So maybe it's just a little bit more, I don't know, overt, as we get in criminal court just a lot of, expert testimony about abuse dynamics and things like that. It's very common to see these experts come in and like, here's all of the text messages between these two people, and what sorts of patterns do you pick up from that, because they want help, like pointing the finger at my client, being like, that's the abuser, not this other person. And I don't know to what extent they do that in family court or not, really. They have the child custody evaluation. Don't know if they were going to talk about DV dynamics or not. So, I can't assume it's his first rodeo, but just the context is so different. I don't know. I'm gonna be kind of interested to see a little bit more, how this plays out, how the judge reacts to it, what sort of clues he gives us about his thought process. But overall, I'd say my big takeaways, number one, judge. I like the judge for the most part. He's real no nonsense. He's real direct. He's real good at communicating, like, kind of what he thinks and what his expectations are and where he's at. I can't necessarily... Joe Langlois, Ioan's attorney, he's a very nice guy, but I can't necessarily credit him for like reading the room when it comes to picking up what the judge has kind of been clearly telling you. Like, the predicate for the DVRO is done. Like, we get it. You didn't need to spend the entire morning on that. But they did. He's not going to tell him how to put on his case. But the judge is really he's pretty clear, pretty forthright. He seems pretty fair, pretty even-handed. Don't agree with everything he did, but I understand his reasoning for it for the most part. Say the one thing I take issue with was the whole cumulative. I don't really buy that it's cumulative, because the reasonableness of his reaction is part of the consideration, not just the reaction itself. And you need to look at the thing he is reacting to understand if his reaction is reasonable or not. But he has a different opinion. That's fine. He's very much in charge of the courtroom, and that is one thing that I absolutely respect in a judge. There's nothing worse than a judge who lets himself be run by the lawyers. And I say that as a lawyer who loves to run. I love to run the court. If I get to run the court, I'm gonna run the court. Like, been there, done that. Been the person like running the docket and stuff. But it is good, because it makes it very clear, you got to mind your P's and Q's. He's not cruel, he's not strict, he's not a tyrant, but he does have expectations, and it's pretty clear he's going to enforce them. So I like the judge. Janina is a fighter. I will give her credit as an attorney. She is putting up a fight. She is objecting a lot. Some of them are successful. Many of them aren't, but it's kind of a volume game. It's not really how many you get. It's do you get the right ones sustained or not. So she's definitely had some success with that in terms of limiting the record that's in front of the judge. Just not sure it's actually going to matter all that much in the end. And the practical reality, the thing that's so kind of bizarre about this anyway, is that the format, the way that they do all this is the judge has like a whole set of binders of the exhibits that everybody is going to be offering. And so when they're testifying about, okay, here's a text message, what was your reaction to that? They're all looking at, so he's reading the text message anyway. He already sees it. He already sees what they're talking about. It's just not going to be in evidence, but like he already knows what it is. So I don't know. It's this bizarre kind of, I don't know, look both ways kind of situation with these text messages. We're like, they're not in evidence, but I'm reading them. Guess they're not going to be part of the basis of his opinion, but that's okay. So Janina is fighting. Got to give her some credit for that. I find her tone a little bit strident sometime, a little slightly obnoxious. Not as bad as Kathy Nestor. She's not as bad as Kathy Nestor, but she does have a little bit of a tendency to kind of sneer. That's argumentative. Well, yeah, it was, but it was also funny as hell. So I didn't begrudge her that one. Joe is a nice guy, and Joe has fight in him too. If I'm critiquing Joe right now, it's that he is letting the exhibits tell the story too much. The exhibits don't tell a good story. The lawyer needs to tell the story, and the testimony needs to tell the story. What we've gotten is kind of like a list of stuff, and so okay, it's information. It certainly matters, but it just hasn't been communicated in a way that I think is really, you know, the kind of thing that will resonate heavily with really anybody. And I think part of the problem is it's very easy to forget when you've been involved in a case like this. He's been on it for several years now. You forget when somebody is new, all of the things that you know that they don't. So I feel like part of it is, you know, Joe knows the story so well that maybe it's just hard to keep perspective on what the court doesn't know. So I'd like to see that improve, but you know, don't know that it matters. Don't know that it will. He's certainly getting the information in, and at least where the facts tend to kind of matter the most. Like, has there been a violation of the DVRO? Yeah, he seems to be making that point with the judge. Judge is saying on the record, well, yeah, I think this one is relevant because this is establishing a violation of the TRO. So yeah, that one's going to come in. Ioan is testifying well, I think. Like I said, he has a hard time kind of articulating the effect that this has had on him. He seems like the kind of person who doesn't necessarily, like, he's not real emotional, and so he doesn't necessarily process things really emotionally, and so that language isn't really readily available to him in terms of talking about his reactions, the impacts of things on him. Bianca is much more expressive, much more emotive in her testimony. I was very glad to have her in the afternoon because things, you know, I get the afternoon lull anyway, the post-lunch lull, you know, it's like, oh, you know, you get blood's in your stomach with your lunch, and you can't have coffee in the courtroom, and you're all kind of starting to get that nod going, particularly when things are a little bit monotonous. And so Bianca comes in, and she is very vibrant. There is just a lot of life and energy that comes out of Bianca. And so when she is talking about her reactions, like, you feel it. So she was, I think, pretty powerful. I think she left a pretty strong impression about just how egregious this behavior was. Ioan, I think it's harder for him to express that. Alice, we haven't heard from yet, of course. So just been watching her in court. For the most part, pretty well behaved. Few odd things. I wouldn't recommend putting your feet on the chair in court, Alice. Just word to the wise. It's not going to get you arrested or anything, but it certainly isn't going to make you look like a calm and competent court attendee. It rather makes you look like a child, like a toddler who needs to be entertained. Not the best look. And then, you know, just the body language in general is very indicative of denial and defiance. You know, the chin up, the arms crossed, the staring at the ceiling. There's been also some like lounging with the arm in the back of the chair. Just it's this combination of can't be bothered and don't care and you know, fuck all y'all anyway. It's just a very hostile. Yeah, just denial is really what sums it up. You know, she'll never, they never do. The abusers never accept that they're the problem, so she never will. And that's just that's coming through loud and clear in how she's presenting herself in the courtroom. Neil's the only other one there, guys. Me and Neil. You know, Neil hangs out and take notes and writes articles like over lunch, and I don't know, it's fine. Don't really have anything much to say about Neil. So, guys, I think that's about all I have to say for tonight. It's been a little bit. We had 34 pages of notes to get through tonight. It won't be so many tomorrow because the day will be shorter. But it might be more exciting if we've got cross-examinations. So I do want to see the comments. Lola the Good Dog 26. I knew them socially about 15 years ago. He was charming and seemed crazy about her. She was always a little extra, but fun. I liked them both. Very sad that it's come to this, especially for the kids. It's really the kids that are the real tragedy in all this. They're the ones that have been let down so much by the whole system and the process. The parents, you know, I can live with adults, you know, falling out and hating each other and stuff like that. But just the damage that this has done emotionally to the kids, there's no coming back from that. And it's a tragedy, and it's unfortunately a tragedy that I think so many of us saw coming. We saw it was coming in real time. We saw it coming in real time. We knew exactly where this was going to end up. I made a freaking video predicting the false accusations like right before the DVRO application was made. It was crystal clear this was where it was going. So just a real travesty that, you know, despite all of this money in the system, you know, $500,000 pumped into the family court system. And this is where we're at. Nothing could prevent it. But it's interesting to hear your perspective, your experience firsthand, because I totally believe this. I really do. I can see how Alice could be a charmer. I absolutely can see it. I can see it with how she interacts with like the court staff, like how she was interacting with the bailiff, for example, in the very early part of the morning. She, you know, you could just see that she has a vivaciousness she can bring. She could be kind of bubbly. So I can totally see her as being you know, fun and entertaining kind of person to have around. Even, you know, even today, you know, she's an attractive woman. She's not, you know, she's not hideous. When she was younger, yeah, she looked excellent, looked very good. I'm sure she was very attractive. I'm sure that, you know, an attractive, bubbly person is going to be somebody that's, you know, going to get a man who is absolutely crazy about her. So It is sad. It is sad that this is where things go, and that's unfortunately the cycle. That's the cycle with a narcissist. It's great until you're in the discard. And it's even worse when they don't get to do the discard, right? If she had just been able to do the discard and get rid of him herself, we wouldn't be here, because we wouldn't have the ego injury that needs to be compensated for. We would just Alice would have found some other man and moved on or whatever, and probably would have peacefully worked out custody and all that. So I don't blame Ioan at all. I'm never going to blame anybody for leaving an abusive relationship. It's definitely not what I mean, but it's just kind of ironic. She didn't want him in the first place, but she hadn't quite gotten to the discard, and so him choosing to leave is like the ultimate sin, the ultimate misbehavior that he's got to be punished for. Lucy Fair is over here gifting a membership. Thank you so much for that, Lucy Fair. I do appreciate it. Well, guys, I'm gonna call it a night. I was up pretty early this morning. LA, like I said, I like LA. It's not New York, but it's very different, but it's a cool city in its own way, and it's also like a fun city to walk in its own way, but very, very different from New York. New York is the perfect grid, and LA is just like a little bit of chaos of underpasses and roads that suddenly go in another direction, and intersections that are supposed to be like, you normally think of an intersection as like an east-west with a north-south, but LA has these intersections that are like west-west and east, and it gets a little crazy like that. But I do enjoy it here, and it's very nice out. And I didn't get to do my trip to South America and like walk 200 miles this year, so I'm enjoying the chance to get out and walk around a little bit. So I was up this early so I could walk downtown and go to court. So it's been a little bit of a long day. And also I ended up inadvertently taking like the no coffee route. I didn't know there was such a thing, but like, just as downtown LA is not a good restaurant culture, like they just don't have a lot of restaurants. You got to walk and walk and walk to find a restaurant. It's hard to find coffee too if you're not on like a main arterial, and I don't necessarily want to walk on like the main traffic area. I can only walk through the neighborhoods and stuff. And usually you expect like maybe there would be a 7-Eleven or like a little mini mercado or something like that. But no, somehow I just ended up on the no coffee route this morning at 5:30 or whatever. It wasn't that early, but it was early. So it's been a long day. I'm gonna check out. It's fine because we have a late start tomorrow, so I'll be able to sleep in. But yeah, fun being in LA, getting to explore a little bit more, getting some nice weather. It was kind of hard for me to figure out how to dress because we're still like in the, I don't know, 40s probably back at home, not quite ready for the transition to summer. Also, I forgot that just because it's warm outside doesn't mean that the days are longer. I had originally kind of thought that what I was going to do is I would sit at the court hearing, and then I would come out and either like go live right away or just record, kind of like record my take, and then just post it as a video, maybe do a premiere so that like we could still be on live and whatever. But I hadn't calculated the fact that the days are still short here. And so like 3.5 hours we talked tonight, it would be pitch black if I tried to do that in like a nice outside setting in Los Angeles. I was like excited. I'm gonna get to share like these. Oh, here's this cool place I like to go and stuff like that. But no, I don't think it's gonna work. But maybe I'll get a short in or something. So I do appreciate all of you guys being here with me this evening. It's not a great. It's not a fun story. These aren't fun stories. They're hard to watch, hard to follow. I mean, I had to take a little break from it around the time the child DVRO got filed, because like that shit got dark. You know, that shit just gets so dark. But it is at the same time, I mean, for me, who's just an outsider, not even participating in this at all, it's a relief to see this finally coming to an end, to a kind of culmination. And so I can just only imagine the relief that Ioan and Bianca are feeling to just finally have their day, finally have some sort of hope that maybe something is going to be done, if nothing else, that this can just be over and they don't have to keep dealing with it. And that's really what worries me the most about this problem with the stipulation, is because if Alice has got to do batterers treatment and drug testing and stuff like that, well, who's supposed to monitor that? The court? I'm really skeptical that the family court is going to turn itself into a probation officer. Now, the criminal court will do that. But I'd just be kind of surprised if the family court does something like that. And so that means that the onus would be on Ioan and Bianca to enforce it. And I think they want to be done. I don't think that would be a good outcome. I really don't. So, yeah, just a lot of uncertainty still, but at the same time, getting a little bit more clarity about where things stand and where they're going and what's really at stake. It's set up. I mean, there have been so many cues. When I talk about reading the room from the judge, I mean, he has given so many cues. Guys, this DVRO determines a lot of stuff. If he reissues the DVRO, he seems to be saying he's not giving her spousal. Seems to be what he's saying. Because that's part of the family code. You don't force somebody to pay their abuser to keep abusing them. So I feel like the judge has signposted this about as clearly as you possibly can. This is where it's going. DVRO is issued. There's going to be problems. It's going to drive a lot of these other decisions. So, not sure it was the best judgment on the part of Miss Alice to be here at all, but here we are. Got to get it done now. Got to see it through. So I do appreciate you guys. You're sticking with this. Those of you who are new, maybe being interested in it enough to stick around and see if this guy is finally going to get some justice. If somebody is finally going to intervene and do something for the benefit of these kids that have been in the middle for far too many years, something finally going to happen. It's like, I'm like afraid to hope. I really am. This has just been so discouraging, I think, for anybody who I try to have faith in the court system. I really do. Try to see it as legitimate and well purposed, good use of government power and just government kind of theory. But when you see it fall apart like this and just not work and let everybody down so egregiously, it's easy to lose faith in it. So very much hoping that we are finally at the point where there is going to be some kind of reckoning, because I think it's been long due. So with that, guys, thank you again all for being here. Thank you for your support. Thank you for your great contributions in the chat. And I look forward to seeing you guys after day 2 tomorrow. Stay tuned. I will see you then.